All right, I'd like to go ahead and call this June 18th, 2014 City of Brookhaven Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. First item on the agenda this evening is roll call. Corey Self.
Present.
Don Bolia.
Present.
Glenn Vyers.
Present.
Hope Balcom.
Present.
Jed Beardsley.
Here.
Kent Gibson.
Present.
And myself, Tim Nama, is here as well. I'd like to start out the meeting by reading the chairman's preamble for the Zoning Board of Appeals for everyone so they understand the purpose of the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals is charged with the responsibility of considering special exceptions and variances to certain ordinance requirements after determining whether undue hardship exists upon an applicant based on the strict application of ordinance requirements and based on established criteria. In addition, the board has the power and duty to hear applications where it is alleged that an administrative official erred in a final order, requirement, or decision based on or made in the enforcement of the zoning ordinance. The Zoning Board of Appeals does not rezone property. The board has no authority to grant variances for use, density, or height, or to grant a variance in conflict with a conditional zoning or special land use permit. In addition, there are limitations placed on the board's authority to vary requirements to the sign ordinance. The board may not extend the time period for temporary outdoor social, religious, entertainment, or recreation activity approved by the Community Development Director. Final decisions of the Zoning Board of Appeals may be appealed by petitioning the Superior Court of DeKalb County within 30 days after the decision is rendered. In addition, I would like to state that this board is comprised completely of citizen volunteers. All of the board members are residents of the city as well as your neighbors. We realize that everyone will not agree 100% with the decisions that we render as a board. Our goal is to make Brookhaven a better place for everyone through our unbiased interpretation of the zoning ordinance in conjunction with the citizen input we receive at our meetings. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. We have the approval of the May 20th, 2014 ZBA work session meeting minutes. Anybody have any comments or revisions from those? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move that we accept them.
All right.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the acceptance of the May 20th work session meeting minutes, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those opposed? All right, they're so approved. Next, we have the approval of the May 20th, 2014 ZBA regular meeting minutes. Any items to discuss there? All right, if not, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the approval of the May 20th regular meeting minutes, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, those are so approved as well. Moving on to organizational and procedural items. The one announcement that I have is we're going to start our work session for next month's meeting in July at 4:30 instead of 5:30, so we can add an hour of continuing education for the board, which will be directed by the city attorney, Mr. Curry. All right, well, let's move into unfinished business. First item on the agenda is ZBA 1420, Caliber Brookhaven LLC, to eliminate the requirement for a single loading space, to allow a curb cut on Peachtree Road, to allow an ATM as an accessory structure, and to vary from 27-728 15-7A and 27-728 15-12 F3, and to allow for an additional ground sign, Chapter 21, at 4260 Peachtree Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you was deferred for 30 days from last month's meeting in order for cooperation between the applicant and the KONA, the Kendrick Osborne Neighborhood Association. We did receive revised plans from the applicant in which they showed a revised vegetative screening plan on the border closest to the residential use, which is directly to the rear of the subject property. In addition to that, they did submit additional building material or elevation that showed the ATM in compliance with the overall building material requirements of the Peachtree Overlay, Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District. As you recall, there are 6 variances before you associated with this property. One, dealing with the elimination of loading space. Two, allowing for an access curb cut along Peachtree Road. And four others associated with an ATM. Staff has reviewed the revised site plan and the elevation. Staff's opinion has not changed. Staff has recommended approval of the elimination of loading space as well as the approval of the curb cut on Peachtree Road, but it has effectively recommended denial of the four variances associated with the ATM as it goes against the intent of the Brookhaven Peachtree Overlay District and would detract from the intent which is associated with walkability and pedestrian accessibility, and instead would promote more vehicular usage on the property and within the overlay. Staff would stipulate to the report, and again, staff would stipulate to the conditions, the three conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Song.
The public hearing had been closed. If it's the pleasure of the board to reopen the public hearing, then it needs to do so by a vote.
Okay. Do we have comment cards for this case?
You have four.
Four. Okay. Would we be reopening the public hearing or the public comment?
Well, they're really the both. The
Okay.
public hearing, and then you can, grant the same amount of time that you normally do for and against,
Okay.
or limit that, however you so choose.
Okay. All right. Would anybody like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing, and under what parameters? I think we need some feedback here.
I'd like to hear the additional comments, so the normal 10 minutes per side,
Okay.
if it's acceptable to the board.
All right. So we have a motion to reopen the public hearing with the 10 minutes per side. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, let's go ahead and have the applicant come forward, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. I'm Shay Roberts here tonight on behalf of Caliber Brookhaven LLC. With me, I have Trey Bell, David Rogers, and Danny York, who all work for Caliber. We also have John Hightower and Jake Bendick from PNC Bank. So if you have any questions I can't answer specifically for them, they're here tonight to answer those. We're going to keep this part of our presentation brief. From what I understand, you all got into a lot of the specifics last meeting, and I so hate to be redundant. It's my understanding that the primary charge was for the applicant to go and speak with Mr. Bars and Mr. Murphy, who are the adjacent property owners. You can see on the site plan that after many emails and an on-site meeting and requests, they've agreed to plant several trees on the property to provide an additional landscape buffer in that 30-foot buffer. And it's my understanding that the Kona has approved that landscape plan that you see up there. So I think Caliber did what you charged them to do last month. In an effort to continue to work with the city and surrounding neighborhood, the applicant is formally withdrawing without prejudice its request for variance number 6. I think this was also discussed. They no longer need the ground sign for the accessory ATM based on the new design that you all have received. And Mr. Song has confirmed my conclusion also that there were variance number 4 is no longer necessary because they have changed the materials to stone and brick. So I think that just leaves us with variances 1 for the elimination of the loading space, 2 for the right-in, right-out only curb access, and then 3 for the ATM structure being used by other than employees, and then the 5, which is that we don't have a 2-story ATM accessory structure, which I don't think any of us want anyway. So when Caliber called me about this project, I was so excited to learn about it because I live around the corner and I drive by the boarded up Shell station every day on my way to work. This proposed brick 2-story mixed-use development with its parking in the back and its large landscape sidewalks in the front is exactly what the drafters of the overlay district intended. This application presents a wonderful opportunity for the city to rid itself of a non-compliant eyesore, arguably the busiest and most visible thoroughfare in the city. Since the overlay ordinance was adopted, there have been very few proposed developments that come this close to meeting all of the requirements. Caliber has worked diligently to design a mixed-use project that does meet the requirements, and only minor variances are needed here. I want to keep some time for rebuttal. I'm going to hand you all a letter that outlines all the ways that these variance requests meet the criteria you're charged with applying tonight. The site is only 0.67 acres, which meets the C1 requirements, but it does mean it has size constraints as it relates to the overlay ordinance. I'm sure, as you all know, this is difficult to put all of these requirements from the overlay on small tracts of land. The retail uses are service in nature, and the loading space is just not necessary. The current gas station has an all-access curb cut on Peachtree, which is arguably unsafe. You will be materially benefiting the public by moving it further from Kendrick and making it safer with a right-in, right-out access. Plus, cars coming in and out, just the traffic flow on the small site would be benefited from this, and we do have verbal approval from DOT, so they've clearly seen that it would be appropriate on this site. Staff has stated that the ATM does not meet the pedestrian-friendly intent of the overlay regulations, and we just don't agree. PNC will have a 24-hour accessible ATM vestibule inside the building to serve its pedestrian customers. The drive-through, though, will be available to its handicapped customers, its parents with kids in the cars, and frankly, for their customers who don't feel safe walking up to an ATM at night. To deprive this applicant of an ATM when other banks in the district have drive-through ATMs would deprive this property owner of privileges given to other property owners in the district. Additionally, the applicant has agreed to plant enormous trees to buffer and eliminate any possible negative impact on the adjacent residential neighbors. To deny this project over something with no legitimate reason will deprive the public of material improvements which are consistent with the overlay. I have to be clear with you all tonight. PNC is what is making this project financially possible. If PNC does not get all of these variances, they will not sign a lease, and we will be looking at a gas station for the next 10 years. As a Brookhaven citizen who drives by this project every day, I would much rather see this beautiful development and hope you vote to approve these minor variances. I'll save any remaining time for rebuttal. And here's my letters.
Thank you. All right. How much time do we have reserved?
5 minutes, 8 seconds.
Okay, thank you. All right. Now we'll call for anyone to speak in favor of the application. Do we have any cards?
We have three.
Okay.
Mac McCall.
Good evening. Yeah, as a resident of Brookhaven who drives up and down this road every day, this is the main street for the community and the neighborhood and the town, and there hasn't been any new development on it in this overlay district. You drive all the way from Buckhead, you got a dark landscaping building, there's a vacant former Keller Williams building in the overlay. I understand you guys have had some issues with it recently. You just got older buildings in this area, and it doesn't accomplish, nothing's getting done here, nothing's accomplishing it. This project seems like it's a great fit for the corridor. It's, you know, it's up on the road. It seems something that'd be very attractive to drive by instead of a closed gas station, which, you know, it's always going to be a gas station unless something can be done like this. So I think this meets the what the community is looking for, what the overlay is looking for, and I think this would be a good project for the neighborhood, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Shane Murphy.
Evening. I'm Shane Murphy. I live at 1303 Kendrick Road. I'm also a board member of Kona. I did want to say that we did meet with the group and discuss some of the concerns that came out from the last meeting. And again, we're just going to echo what we said last time. We do support it. Some key things that we did talk about with regards to the landscaping. They've made some changes to accommodate the requests of Kona. Specifically, they've looked at 15 alley elm trees along the backside, which you can see where the ATM drive-through, you'll see 3 large areas that highlight the alley elms. We discussed 4-inch caliper alley elms on that backside, and then the cryptum area that's also running along the property line. We discussed 12 to 14-foot cryptum area in height. So again, Kona greatly appreciates the fact that they came to us to talk to a nice collaborative event. And again, we're voicing our support. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murphy.
John Bembry.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Brookhaven. I live at 2918 Mitchell Cove. And, you know, every time I drive to my house in Brookhaven, I'm proud of the neighborhood I live in. The community is an affluent community. It's a safe community. And it's a sought-after community. And when we drive up and down Peachtree Street, and there's vacant buildings all over the place, I'm concerned about the safety and the long-term viability of our community. It's, you know, it's an area we're proud of. And if we've got this stance that we're not pro-development and not pro-change, especially when a group is making the changes and assertions that these guys have, then it's a concern for us, and it's a concern for the long-term value of our neighborhood. And that's why I'm pro this development. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have no other speaker cards, either in favor or in opposition.
Ms. Cannon, we do have a audience member raising his hand to speak.
Have you,
Is he in favor or opposition?
I don't know.
okay?
Well, we need to have a speaker card, please.
I've already got one for one of the other things. You want me to just add this to it, or do I need to have two different cards? I've already got one card to speak on another issue.
Just prepare one later.
Okay, okay. I'm Ronnie Mayer, Acting President of Ashford Park. We're pro this. Only question I have to ask, I'm looking at the plan when they did the veterinarian clinic. They brought the sidewalk and everything up to the street with the MARTA line on the other side. Is this right here? Are you bringing the building all the way up to Peachtree, just like the veterinarian clinic? Because I would like for us to really think real heavily about bringing it as far as we did with the veterinarian, the clinic, because if you ever have to add a lane to Peachtree, you're done. So if the drawings are for the building to be up like the veterinarian clinic, let's see if we can move it backwards just a few more feet. So if we have to add a lane there, we still can, because whoever did the other gig, I mean, if we ever have to have another lane, you got the MARTA tracks and train tracks on the other side, and I just don't think that was a wise thing. But like I say, anything that they do with heavy landscaping, two-story with brick, nice looking, it's a lot better than that old Shell station. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Back forward, yes.
All right, so we have no more speakers in favor or against. Roberts, did you want to rebut any of the people that spoke in favor?
Gentleman back there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
My name is Ricky Jones. I'm also a resident of Brookhaven, live over there off of Dresden in South Bambi. I also support the PNC Bank going over there. Obviously, I run down Peachtree all the time, just as you see people coming up and down, and obviously this would be a tremendous difference to the community, and especially the street, and especially with the streetscape. And aesthetically, we all know that that would make a tremendous difference in simply the aesthetics there. Also, one thing that I was thinking about is the secondary structure. Obviously, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make that a two-story structure, but then also just the accessibility, kind of creating a more flow of traffic instead of having people stopping and going, consistently getting out of the cars to come to the bank, then you know, simply staying in the car, just as it was said earlier, to people with kids not having to worry about that. And also the safety, I think, is a pretty major concern, especially as we see it now, just kind of a boarded up building. Obviously, the transition there, I think, would be tremendous. But thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any more comments for or against? All right. Ms. Roberts, did you need to use any of your time?
I think we need 5 minutes, maybe 30 seconds to sum it up.
Okay, sure.
I'm David Rogers. I'm the director with Caliber Capital. I was here last time. I just want to reiterate the big picture here of taking a closed-up gas station, turning it into something that is taken the overlay into consideration, done the best we could with .67 acres to put a two-story building, park that two-story building, provide the buffer required, and work with the neighborhood per the request of the board last time. The only other comment I have would be, moving that position of the building, which seemed to be the only maybe area or comment of concern from the public, I think is clear that it wouldn't be possible just based on the size. It's also probably important to point out that it's positioned this way because of the code and because of the way we're essentially told to position it. So it has no other motivation than that. So probably no more time needed to blab on. So we appreciate your time and look forward to an approval this evening.
All right. Thank you very much. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public comment and open it up to the board for any questions of staff or any of the speakers present this evening.
Is the diagram of the ATM that's found on packet page 42 the current proposed plan? Calling for the,
You can answer that.
It's over 10 feet in height.
I believe shows.
Mr. Beardsley, are you asking the staff? Or you asking the applicant?
I want to know from the applicant, is this because I think if we're going to make it site plan specific, we ought to make this part of the condition because it should be part of the site plan, this drawing. It's like an additional element of the site plan. That's all. If this is what they want to build and we agree that it's okay, then I just want to.
I would think that if you were so inclined to make a motion about that you could add a reference to packet page 42.
That's what I was thinking.
If that's what you were thinking.
I was.
Okay.
And Mr. Beardsley, if I may add, in terms of the building materials, adding that condition would be appropriate if you are moving that way. But in terms of the signage associated with what's currently shown there, without being able to correctly verify if that is in compliance with our sign ordinance, I would just ask that if you do move forward, that you limit to a reference of the building material, not necessarily the signage.
Okay.
Okay, excluding the site, yeah. I'm just mainly worried about the height.
So just so we have some clarification, and I'll ask this from staff. The variances that we're now considering are obviously number one, as it's written in the application or in the staff report. Number two, the staff recommended a right in, right out, and it appears that the new site plan shows that as well. So, okay. Number three is understandable, is ATM is an accessory structure. And number four, it appears that the submitted diagram would meet the conditions of number four, is that?
That is correct. It appears that it would meet the requirements of the overlay district.
Okay, so we would be, is number four being withdrawn?
Okay. Yeah, the applicant has requested that item 4 and 6 be withdrawn without prejudice.
All right, that's what I needed to know.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may add, when deliberating on this case, if you could actually vote on each individual variance one by one. Thank you.
I have a question.
Okay.
Mr. Murphy and Mr. Barr, I know that each of you live on Kendrick. I understand you're in support of the application. How would either of you feel about there not being a curb cut on Peachtree and all the traffic being pushed on Kendrick?
You want to take that?
Traffic on Kendrick is already overburdened by 50% based on a recent study from the city. So unless there were some other solution, I don't think the members of our area would be in favor of that.
Thank you.
All right, did anybody else have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Some of us are using the technology.
You
just need to
staff. Can we require the developer, I've heard some concerns about people walking and running up that road. Can we require the developer to put up a sign that's not obtrusive for their viewpoint that says, look right and left, something like that, that the staff would develop on, and require the developer to put up something that would indicate to the patrons that are leaving and doing the right only that they must look right or left?
Yeah, that definitely could be a possibility. It depends how we classify it, but it could be considered as a traffic sign or either a directional sign.
All right, Mr. Self?
Well, I'd kind of like to go right through the list, if I may. Question for the applicant, the variance to the loading space. As I recall, it's going to be 2,500 square feet of retail space on the first floor. What kind of retail space are we talking there, and why do we not need a loading space? Or is that just due to the small acreage? You didn't feel you could fit it in?
The intention for the retail space is all service-oriented retail. Obviously, P&C would be the lion's share of that retail space. The remaining portion of that retail space, it's our intention to have, like I said, a service-oriented retailer, probably for reasons of the size of the lot would be, I mean, it wouldn't be beneficial for us to put a tenant in there that would then defer tenants from the office space. So we have every intention of limiting as much truck traffic, i.e. loading zone requirements, as we could.
Okay. You don't envision, though, having something where a semi-truck is going to need to back up to offload product of any sort?
No.
It will be
No.
service-oriented one
Yes.
way or another?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my issue with variance number 2 was addressed somewhat in the work session, but I would like to reiterate my personal feelings toward a right-in, right-out curb cut, or that they are more dangerous. I personally have pulled out of a right-out curb cut, checking left to make sure no cars were coming, but not checking right to make sure no pedestrian was there, and have nearly hit people a few times now. I make it a habit now to look, but had I actually hit somebody, it could have drastically changed their life and mine. I know the intent of the overlay is to be more pedestrian friendly. I would rather see a full access curb cut there than the right in, right out, where people stop and think to look left and right and are aware of pedestrians coming from the right. And then a question for staff on variance number 3. I guess being a bank, they obviously are going to have an ATM. Is the recommendation of denial based on there being a secondary or ulterior location where they could put that ATM without it being an accessory structure? Because looking at their plan, it seems they need the parking spaces right around the building. I question, can they really do that any differently?
Well, originally, what staff brought up last meeting was that there could have been an alternative location in that it could have been possibly built into the facade of the building. Again, where it leads into the pedestrian accessibility off of the road without vehicular access. But again, the applicant sort of addressed that in that they are going to provide one internally. That wasn't necessarily shared initially when the application was submitted. But we still feel that, again, the intent of the overlay itself was to incorporate such features where it's built into the building itself or it's provided internally, not necessarily external to the building, therefore detracting from pedestrian activity.
Thank you.
I think it's worth pointing out that this is a bank with no drive-up, regular transaction, no tube station, if you will, for sending stuff through the bank. So the bank's already made a great concession here to get people into the bank, and so to put a bank on a lot this small required them to waive the basically drive-up teller approach altogether, so I think that's commendable.
All right, does anybody else have any questions? I don't see anything in my queue. All right, well then we'll go ahead and close the public hearing portion of this case and open it up to the board for discussion or motions. And let's go ahead and when we do get to the point to do motions, let's address these one at a time.
I've been making some notes on all these various conditions, and I'm prepared to make the motions, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead.
Okay. I think by taking them one at a time, we need to not forget that there are some overall conditions at the end of the staff recommendation. How would you like those incorporated into the individual motions? Let me make a stab at it, okay? My stab will be that all of the variance action we take tonight on this case be conditioned upon staff recommendation number 1, plus, in addition to the site plan being a condition, that the landscape plan and the building material specifications be part of staff condition 1. The latest submittal by the applicant for the revised landscape plan and the building material submissions are part of staff condition 1. Staff condition 2 is for the access easement for future interparcel access should be included as part of my motion. And the curb cut on Peachtree Road limited to right in, right out only, with the additional condition of a traffic warning sign at that exit for pedestrian awareness. That would be also part of my overall motion, those 3 conditions. So with that in mind, I move that we approve variance request number 1 as stated to eliminate the single loading space requirement.
All right, we have a motion for granting of variance number 1, loading space, section 27-755B2, conditioned as stated by Mr. Beardsley. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the approval, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the variance is so granted as conditioned.
Okay, I move that we approve variance request number 2, but for a right-in, right-out access curb cut, reiterating the pedestrian warning signage requirement according to city, subject to city approval.
Okay, with the same conditions stipulated
Same
in variance
conditions,
1.
yeah, same conditions.
All right, so we have a motion for the approval of variance number 2, which is access curb cuts 27-728, 1512D3. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Discussion. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to that, going along with Mr. Self saying, I'd like to see if the staff can direct them to have some kind of a traffic sign indicates to the patrons they need to look right and left before exiting.
And that was
Mine.
that
That
was
was a
part of one
condition.
of the original conditions.
Okay, that was mine.
Okay.
I think we got that one done.
I believe it was pedestrian awareness. That was good. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
All right, the motion passes.
Variance request number 3, I move for approval with the additional condition that the ATM features be constructed in accordance with the drawings on packet page 42, excluding the signage element. That signage element is not part of our conditions approval or this variance.
And also including your other conditions from the
Yes,
previous
including
statement.
all the other conditions.
All right. We have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval of the ATM as an accessory structure, 27731D. Motion and second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right. Variance is granted.
Okay,
Number 5.
variance 4 has been withdrawn, but essentially incorporated because of the building materials condition that I've added. Variance 5, I move for approval to eliminate the requirement that the accessory ATM kiosk be 2 stories.
Mr. Chairman, they have requested that that be withdrawn without prejudice.
You mean
that
4?
Number 4, and that does require the approval of the board.
Okay.
So I move we approve the applicant's request to withdraw variance 4 with prejudice. Without prejudice.
All right.
Should have known better, Counselor.
All right, we have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for withdrawal of item number 4, which is the architectural design requirements, 27-728-15-7, withdrawal without prejudice. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed? So carries.
Okay, for variance 5, I move that we approve this variance to eliminate the 2-story requirement for the ATM kiosk. Again, the same conditions, that it be built pursuant to the drawings in packet, page 42, excluding any reference to the signage, which we are not opining on.
All right. We have a motion and a second from Mr. Gibson. All right. Motion and a second for the approval of variance number 5, which is development standards and building height, 27-728-1512 F3. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
All right. The motion carries.
I move that the applicant be allowed to withdraw variance request number 6 without prejudice.
Second.
All right. Motion and a second for withdrawal of item number 6 without prejudice, which is ground sign 2120C. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, moving on to our next case, which is ZBA 1425, Carrera Homes, to increase lot coverage from 35% to 36.9% to build a swimming pool at 2727 North Thompson Road. We will need a motion to reopen the public hearing. If we so choose.
I'm not in favor of reopening the public hearing, Council Chairman.
Okay. Would we not have to reopen the public hearing if we wanted to ask any questions of the applicant?
If during executive session, which is what you would be going into, it's been your procedure, after you've closed the public hearing, to ask questions of staff as well as the applicant, if you wish to do so.
Okay.
But in order to open the public hearing and have presentations to you, then you need to vote to approve that.
Okay, and have we received any comment cards?
We have received one comment card,
Okay,
and it's from the applicant.
okay. All right,
I'd like to hear from the members who weren't here at the last meeting and see if they're comfortable with just not reopening the public hearing.
I'm comfortable with that. I watched the 5-hour video.
It was something, wasn't it?
All right, well then, I believe that we're in executive session, if I haven't heard a motion from anyone to reopen the public hearing. So we'll go ahead and open up the board for discussion or any questions they may have of the applicant or staff.
Discussion.
Any discussion? Any questions?
Well, I don't know that I'm the right person to ask this or address this, but I think in our work session, it was mentioned that the survey that was submitted on June 4th does not appear to be signed by the surveyor, nor does it appear to be an as-built. I think we do need to ask the applicant for clarification on that.
All right. You mind coming forward, please? Hey there, Mr. Longer.
My name's Stephen DeLonga. I'm a principal at Carrera Homes, the applicant for this application. On the bottom left-hand corner on the stamp, it's signed through the stamp, and it was in fact an as-built. The people did come out there. It was, I believe, denoted on there that it was an as-built, but I can't see exactly where at the moment. But I can confirm that it definitely was resurveyed. The people went out there and confirmed the dimensions for all parts of the building as well as the adjoining houses.
I am scrolling through my packet here, looking for it, but I believe the survey that we have in our packet is not actually signed through that stamp. I
Page
don't know.
60, I think is the packet page.
Stamp. Yeah, I'm just trying to get there.
Yeah.
And figure out this newfangled technology to. Yeah, I'm looking at it here in our packet. It is not signed through the stamp at all.
I can verify that it has been done, and that it is in fact an as-built.
So the concern, as I watched the video from last month's meeting, and I don't have my orientation correct here because I can't get the screen resized. But the concern was that the house adjacent, in the previous survey was shown as a one-story and a setback that was not believed to be appropriate. I believe it's now showing a two-story.
I believe the point that we were referencing in asking for an as-built was that there were possibly some discrepancies between the site plan that was originally included with the packet and what was possibly on site. So we did ask for an as-built to be done so we could determine exactly what was there. I don't think there was one thing in particular that we were seeking. There were just a couple issues that we wanted an as-built to be able to clarify.
And having not been here through that meeting, I'm going off of memory from watching a 5-hour video. But are those concerns addressed through this revised submission?
I think my concerns have been addressed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions or comments or discussion? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to deny the.
You just turned it off.
I'll make a motion to deny the application since I'm not hearing any motions to approve it.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for denial of ZBA 14-25. Any discussion? My discussion would be that I think that my concerns originally with wanting an as-built done have been addressed if this is in fact a true as-built. I think that there's probably several people on the board that are confused with the location, I guess, of the pool and the proximity to the home. It's kind of, I think we're looking at a 1.9% variance at the end of the day. And if there's not community opposition and this is something the homeowner wants and they're going to have to end up dealing with the ramifications of it, then that's their prerogative by having a pool too close to their home. So I personally would not be in favor of denying the application. Any other discussion?
Well, I've been a little hesitant to speak up because I wasn't here last week, or last month, and unlike my colleague Corey, I did not spend 5 hours watching last week. I did get current on House of Cards, however. And I think, I don't know if I missed, I don't think that I missed anything. I think that the chairman's point that what is being asked for is really dealing with, less than 2%. And the coverage requirement, I would be inclined to vote in favor, or to approve the application. So if the reason for Jed's motion was just kind of almost a default position because nobody was moving forward, I think I'd be willing to, if you withdrew it, I'd step up and I'd move acceptance. So I don't know whether because there's a motion.
I think we've got a motion.
You already have a second to the motion.
Motion and a second.
Right.
So
Let's continue the discussion, in my recommendation.
Okay, I would be opposed to your motion, Jed, because I think it is a relatively minor variance, and there's not been opposition. So for that reason, I think I could not support or your motion.
Jed, I'd like to hear your rationale behind a motion to denial.
I feel like the lot coverage is quite maximized. It's the construction that's currently on the property already kind of overwhelms the property, and I just don't feel comfortable increasing lot coverage. That's all. I'm not adamant, but I don't think we have to explain any more.
Yeah, I just didn't know if I...
Any other discussion? All right. Seeing there's none, we have a motion on the floor for denial of ZBA 14-25. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
What was that count?
5-2 denial.
All right,
5-2 denial of the denial.
Okay, so the denial of the denial. So we still have an open case in front of us. Would anyone like to discuss further or make a subsequent motion?
I'll make a motion that this be approved.
Conditional on?
Condition on the what? That's what I was looking for.
I don't think that there are.
On the site plan that was submitted, that's what I was looking for. That's why it took me a while to.
June 4th?
June 4th. Yeah, the June 4th site plan.
All right, so we have a motion for approval of ZBA 14-25 for an increase in lot coverage from 35% to 36.9%, conditional that be developed in accordance with the site plan dated 6/4/2014. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 5-2. All right, moving on to new business. ZBA 14-28, BK Residential Construction LLC, to reduce the front setback along Fern Circle from 30 feet to 22.5 feet to construct a single-family dwelling at 2403 Thompson Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request before you is related to a property that's an existing corner lot. The request essentially is to reduce the setback requirement along Fern Circle. The required setback in this case would be 30 feet. As you can see from the existing site plan, the subject property with the current existing home is currently set back at 12.3 feet. The request would essentially set the new structure back even further. The closest point of the foundation as shown would be, I believe, 23.9 feet. I believe the applicant has requested a reduction to 22.5 to possibly consider for overhang, something that the applicant can address. But based upon what has occurred within that area, staff felt that it's consistent and has recommended approval of the request. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Song. All right, if we could have the applicant please come forward.
Good evening, I'm Alex Popham with BK Residential. I'm open to any questions. I feel like this would be a great transition for the neighborhood. I'll let my time go, and if y'all have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, one thing that I left off, in the confusion of all these revised site plans that were submitted to staff, I did want to clarify that the staff recommendation shown on the staff report references a site plan from April 1. It's actually should be corrected to May 30th.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to any comments. Do we have any comment cards for this?
We do not have any speaker cards.
Okay. Sure.
Steve, my name is Harold McMillan.
Are you in favor or in opposition?
I have a question. Based on what I just read, can I ask the question?
Consider it opposition.
That's fine. I'll be opposed.
You got to pick a side.
Okay, I'll be opposed at this point.
All right.
My name is Harold McMillan. I live at 2409 Thompson Road, adjoining property. It says here the proposed driveway of the new home will front on Thompson Road. But I believe that drawing shows that the new driveway is going to be on Fern Circle. It does not? So clarify that? Okay.
Yeah. Showing it there.
That's the existing driveway. Does that say proposed?
Yes. It says PROP, so I...
Okay.
They're in the same place.
Was that modified since it was first submitted, you know? Well, it's not important. If that's the current what you're voting on, that's fine.
All right.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to answer, I believe it's been modified. I believe it originally showed it off of Fern. Like I said, multiple revisions have come through, but this is the latest revised site plan that we're seeing.
Okay.
All the more reason to make sure we specify May 30th.
All right, seeing as how we have no more comment cards, we'll go ahead and close public comment, open it up to the board for discussion. Or any questions?
I think staff made a observation that the house across Fern Circle is also less than 30 feet on the Fern Circle side, right?
Yes, that is correct. Directly across Fern Circle, staff did approve administrative variance where it reduced the setback from 30 feet to 27 feet.
Yeah, I mean, I'll state my position on this case is the fact that pretty much every corner lot is going to require variance due to the fact that it has two front setbacks. I think the applicant has reduced the, they're pushing the new home back further than the existing home is. I don't see any reason to not support this application, as it being the minimum relief. And as far as the house showing 23.9 feet off the street and the request being for 22.5 feet, I don't think it's granting too much to give 18 inches to try to wiggle a house on the lot to make sure that they get it inside that building box. It's not as easy as it seems sometimes. Any other questions, discussion, motions?
Make a motion to pass with the May 30th, 2014 site plan.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for the approval of ZBA 1428, conditioned upon the recommendation in the staff report using the site plan date of May 30th. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion is approved.
With the condition.
All right, moving on to the next case, ZBA 14-29, Daniel Shipper, excuse me. Reduce the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 13.33 feet to construct a screened porch addition at 1182 Pelly Circle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is seeking to enclose an existing patio area, which there's also an existing fireplace on the property. The staff would note that although the lot coverage is exceeding the maximum allowed, as it currently exists at 56%, we felt that the proposed request would not increase the degree of nonconformity as there's no expansion proposed. Staff has recommended approval. Staff would stipulate to the report and the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Song. All right, could the applicant please come forward? And I apologize for mispronouncing your last name.
No, you actually pronounced it right. It is
Okay.
Skipper.
All right, good.
Most people do say Shipper,
See,
but
y'all quit
I'll
telling me
answer
I
to
was
either
wrong.
one. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bob Skipper. I'm actually Dan's brother and also a builder. And based on the recommendation of the staff, and very grateful for the staff's interest in this and a couple of visits that were made by, I think, even one of the board members. Very grateful for that. And having the approval of the neighbors, both sides, as well as having talked to the folks behind, and the pictures as they show that there's no, the person directly behind the house would not even be able to see it because of the evergreens and because of their deck and the fence. And so I would just respectfully submit and ask that this would be granted to be able to use the patio, as the patio was originally built with the house, and then the fireplace was later added. But to be able to use it more and to enhance the use of the house, I would ask that you would approve this request.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, do we have any speaker cards? Is there anyone who wants to speak that didn't fill out a card? Ronnie? All right.
Trying to make it a
South Sandy Springs.
All right, we will go ahead and close the public comment, open it up to the board for any questions or discussion.
I have a question about packet page 87, the vegetation shown in the hashed area. Looks like this. Mr. Skipper, is this new vegetation?
Yeah, the second sheet shows the things that will be added. And the photos show, already it's very well screened, but these are the ones that we'll be adding.
Additional screening?
Yes, sir.
Would certainly reduce the impact of adding a roof line, I think. So, my suggestion on this case is that we include in the conditions the vegetation as specified in the submittal by the applicant, not just the site plan, if you will.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the staff did not include that as a condition because it is so vegetated already, but we just wanted you to know why we did not.
Would you like to state that in motion form, Mr. Beardsley? Love for you to.
Okay, I'll move that we approve this variance request 1429 to reduce the rear setback from 30 to 13.33 feet for the express and sole purpose of constructing a screen porch addition, and that be conditioned upon development in accordance with the site plan submitted April 1st with site plan reference to include all the vegetative descriptions provided by the applicant, particularly on packet page 87.
A second.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of ZBA 1429 as conditioned. Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? All right, the motion so passes. All right, moving on to ZBA 14-30, Brookhaven Homes LLC. Reduce lot width from 100 feet to 90 feet to subdivide a single R100 zone parcel into two separate lots at 1456 Ashwoody Court.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The applicant is seeking to subdivide a single lot that's currently zoned R100. Essentially, they'll be meeting the requirements for lot area as Lot 1 proposed to the left-hand side. It's above 18,000 square feet, where Lot 2 is also exceeds the minimum requirement for the R100 of 15,000 square feet, as they show a 16,000 square foot lot. The main issue here in the request is associated with the lot width. Lot width is associated with street frontage as well as the width of from side to side as measured at the point of the building setback line. Staff would point out that although the applicant and the site plan shows us a front yard setback of 35 feet, staff has stated into the record per the staff report that we would have to look into it as the average setback may be applicable. But with that said, when you look at the other, there are several other lots along Ashwoody Court that maintain lot frontage of 90 feet and 98 feet. It's essentially across from the subject property. We felt that, again, the request would be appropriate with sort of the way in which parcels historically in that area may have been parceled out. And also to the fact that the lot size would be met, even with the subdivision. Staff has recommended approval. Staff would stipulate to the report and to the conditions outlined. Thank you.
Okay. All right, could the applicant please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. My name is Nick Thompson. I'm here on behalf of Brookhaven Homes. We come before you tonight with a conforming request accepting our lot width at the front setback. As you can see, the property tapers off front to back going north. It's wider at the front in lieu of the rear. And then we also have one of those eyebrow cul-de-sacs that you see in the Ashwoody submarket that pushes the lot to the right a little bit deeper. If we could bring that house a little bit closer, if that eyebrow cul-de-sac weren't there, we would be closer to our 100-foot width at the front building setback. We're not asking for any setback reductions, and Brookhaven is, obviously you guys have seen and heard from them in the past, they're active in that neighborhood, and the product is looking to be in the high 7s and low 8s for those two homes there. So thank you for your time. I'd like to reserve the balance of my time for any rebuttal to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any speaker cards for this case?
We have 5 speaker cards, 1 speaker card of which does not denote either support or opposition, and did indicate they did not wish to speak. So I'm not sure. It's Kathleen Jakowski.
I'm just concerned that there's no, from what I've been able to read.
All right.
It's a ravine.
Let's just go ahead and mark that for
So
opposition. Okay. That's all right. Thank you very much.
I have no cards in favor.
Okay.
I do have two,
Susan, we have somebody in the back with one.
I'm sorry.
We have someone in favor
Oh,
that's coming forward with a card. Oh. Okay.
we have, the remaining cards are in opposition,
Okay.
3 of which apparently choose to speak. 2 do not want to speak. The 2 that are opposed that do not wish to speak are David Hogue and Ashley Owen Avant.
Okay. Well, then let's go ahead and call the speakers that do want to speak.
Noel Hogue,
Okay.
We give them 3 minutes each?
We have 10 minutes aggregate, and then we'll
Oh,
address it. however
yes,
we-
I wish to speak.
Okay, I'm talking about here.
Good evening. My name is Noelle Hoagie, and I live at 4202 Candler Lake West, which is around the corner from the proposal. And it's down the hill. My biggest concerns, like Kathleen Jakowski's, are the hydrology study needs to be done for this property. There's a huge ravine where the houses that they're proposing are going to be built. I'm not sure as well about the conceptual elevation, if they're going to build out of the ravine or put dirt to fill it. And I'm very concerned about my lot and the ones around it, as water needs to go somewhere, and currently that's where it's filtering through, is where the houses will be built. I am concerned about the tree cut down because it butts up against my lot, and whether there will be retaining walls or retention pond as well. And there was a staff comment that there does not appear to be a topographical conditions preventing the development potential, but there, as I said, there is a huge ravine where the houses are proposed to be built, and that's the drainage that comes from Ashwoody Court. So I disagree with staff comment.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Alan Cole.
I'm Alan Cole, and I'm at 1433 Ashwoody Court. It's across the street from this lot. And this is the first time we've seen the site plan, but there's a lot of bad information on it. These lots are east-west lots, not north-south lots. So when they talk of south in the comments, that wouldn't be correct. Also, it shows in the survey, and we obviously don't have a chance to pull another survey, of it being right on the Porter residence. And I know it won't be on the Porter's residence. I don't have the other survey in front of me, but Cowart Homes pretty much held to this 10-foot lines. So I'm kind of doubting that on the survey. The survey's not signed. I mean, I don't have a real objection to the home. I just have an objection. I don't think the survey's proper at all. And if it's not, it's probably not buildable, because I believe you're going to find out that there is a 10-foot, where it says the 10-foot building line is, I believe that's Porter's property. If you look at the survey, you'll see what I'm talking about. It shows it on the edge of the house. I don't think anybody built them that way. And I'm not sure, in the notes, note 2 by the staff, it says south of the property. I assume he must be talking east of the property, but I'm not sure. If he looked at the survey, he's wrong.
So, Mr. Colt, you're saying?
We can't
You're
ask
not
questions
north.
right now.
That's not north.
It's not north?
Trust me, it's
We're
not
in the
north.
Question portion.
The sun rises right where that arrow is. So and it's not a signed survey, so I don't know if that means they didn't have time to look at this. And if you look at the house, it's showing a property line actually on the corner of the house. That's an existing house. I believe you're going to find that the true survey is going to be 10 feet, which would be 10 feet south of it, not according to the direction on the map. And then the other thing was we're just concerned about the 90-foot precedent if that starts letting another 180-foot homes split into 90. Because we have a lot of homes wanting to put 2 on it. We're not objecting about new home. The survey's not right. At all. Something's amiss there. So a continuance or someone needs to relook at it.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I have is, I apologize, I can't read the last name, but it looks like Eric Hawley.
My name's Eric Hawley. I'm at 1478 Ashwoody Court, which is the property just to the east, on the survey to the right. And my concern is the character of our neighborhood is large lots, old mature trees, and I really would like to understand what their plans are, what trees they're going to cut down, how are they just going to come and clear cut the lot, or what? And also, there is a large ravine that runs through that area, and it runs right through my property, and I've had trees that have been undercut by water that have hit my house. There is if you'll notice, there's a drainage, a street drain that goes to it's a culvert that runs basically along the property line. Yes, it runs to it feeds into a pipe that goes along the property line and then dumps in the ravine. And in heavy rainstorms, you'll get a tremendous amount of water coming through there. Also, if that drain is not maintained, because of the neighborhood and large trees, it fills up with leaves. And then what happens is water comes over the top of the storm drain, and then it's like a river that runs through there and causes all kinds of damage. My concern is about how they will affect the property positively or negatively in regard to drainage, because I know that it can be an issue in that area, and concerned about, trees falling on my house when they're cutting them down, and what are their plans? They've not contacted anyone to explain what they're really going to do. Last night was the first time I even saw this plan. That's basically what I had to say. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Hall. All right, do we have any other speakers present? All right. And I believe the applicant had reserved some time for rebuttal. Would you like to present any rebuttal now? Okay, please come forward.
Thank you. We actually do have a boundary survey that is signed that the property owner had obtained in years prior, and we use the calls off of that to do our concept plan. So I have that boundary survey and can provide it to y'all.
You place it on
Yes,
that
gotcha.
table, everybody can see it.
And then it's 2 pages. I'm sorry, it was letters. So the signature block is on the second page. I can turn to that in a moment. But survey. So with regard to the water issue, if you'll look here, there's an existing catch basin in Ashwoody Court, a storm drain, and that it has a reinforced concrete pipe that daylights behind it. So there is a natural drainage area there, and that's where that stormwater is going today, basically down the common line of these 2 lots. So the one speaker that said the foliage and the leaves get into the catch basin and fill up the mouth of it, then yes, the water is going to run over the top of the lid and over the back of it, and until the leaves are cleared out. With regard to the comment about the house to the left, of the subject. If you go back to our exhibit where we pulled the GIS topo off of it, you'll see the silhouettes of the surrounding houses. So that information came from GIS. Our boundary survey doesn't show an encroachment. We're not stating that that person isn't 10 feet off of the common line. That was populated with the topography from GIS. So we know that that house is not an issue for us building these 2 new houses. And quite frankly, it's not our concern. We're not going to go measure that side setback of that house on that property. It doesn't affect us. So I do have copies of this survey. In terms of clearing and trees going down, Mr. Hughes from Brookhaven is here. He can speak to their development track record and history. But they do a good job. It's a quality product. You can walk around and touch it and feel it and live in it everywhere in this town. Mr. Chairman, that's all I have. If there's any questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. We will go ahead and close the public comment and open it up to the board for any questions of staff or anyone else present.
I'll go ahead and get us started out because I've got several. Mr. Song, did I understand you correctly in your opening comments that the building setback line, which in this case is not necessarily the standard 35-foot setback, we're not really sure what it would be, that line would need to be the overall lot width. Is that accurate? So I'm not stating this properly at all, but the 90 feet that they're asking for would be both the street frontage and the front of that building envelope? Is that?
No, in this case, just to clarify, I may have confused folks by what I stated up front, but in this case, what they're asking for and what appears like from their site plan, they're asking for the reduction in lot width what at the point where it's measured from the setback, the front setback. So it's not related to street frontage or lot frontage.
Okay, so the 90 feet is where they're saying the 35-foot setback is.
Correct. And then, if you apply, let's say, for instance, hypothetically, the average front yard setback requirement is applied, it may push out the setback further, in essence, also, or in this case, it may reduce the lot width even further, because as you can see, it tapers towards the back.
And I guess that's my concern, is that if we don't know what the setback is, and we were to grant a variance of 90-foot lot width based on a 35-foot setback, and then they are pushed back, they effectively can't subdivide the lots, even though they have the variance they've asked for.
That may be a possibility. And again, we sort of, with knowing that information or without knowing that information, again, that's why staff recommended it as part of the condition in parentheses that the front yard setback will be determined at time of permitting. I mean, they may not be consistent with the site plan that they have submitted.
But at the time of permitting, they would have already subdivided the lots, correct?
I think the point you're making is that if, based upon the average front yard setback, if the house gets pushed back, it's not going to fit within the setbacks. Right. And part of the criteria today is that if the condition is caused by the owner, then you don't grant the variance.
That's exactly where I'm going, Mr. Curry.
So your point is that it would, in order to determine whether or not this is feasible, then the average front yard setback ought to determine whether, if it applies and then where it should be.
Absolutely. Because my concern is we could grant a variance tonight for 90-foot lot width. They can go before the community development group and get the administrative variance to subdivide these lots, come in for a permit and find, oh, your average setback pushes it back another 10 feet, 15 feet, whatever it is. They can no longer build the houses they're planning to build without a new variance, which they can't get because it's self-imposed.
Mrs. Yu, what you have stated is correct.
A couple questions. Just to clarify, we're not, and I know some of the folks have talked about this, we're not approving them building a home or two homes on these two sites. All we're approving is for them to go forward for an application to subdivide the site. So they still have to go through a whole nother set of processes before they can go any further.
Correct. There's a separate factors that they would have to take into consideration to even consider the subdivision. But essentially, yes, through this request, it's allowing the applicant the feasibility to move forward with subdividing the lot.
And the second question is, we've heard some people question the survey itself. How do you verify the information given to you by the applicant?
Generally speaking, I mean, we take an actual site plan that's signed off by a surveyor, stamped survey, to be true as presented. In addition to that, we could also double check against our GIS, but that's not 100% accurate. Generally speaking, the requirement for a site plan is to essentially establish that what is submitted is true to the fact of what they're requesting.
And just my last comment to the developer, there's some folks who've indicated you haven't reached out to them. Obviously, this is the first step in many steps for you. I really do encourage you to start working with the neighborhood a little closer as you go forward, because obviously they're very interested and they're watching. So that's just a comment for you.
Question from Mr. Thompson. I have a question for Mr. Thompson. So who's the owner of this property?
Mr. Perrell and his wife.
Are they here?
Their representative is here, but I don't think they're here. No, sir.
They're not here?
Chris Perrell is his name.
So you have it under contract to purchase it?
Yes, sir.
I'm just surprised you don't have a new survey, Mr. Thompson. I mean, this application seems rather skimpy, deficient in several respects, and doesn't give us much detail. Maybe you didn't think we needed it, but there's just a lot of questions here. The second speaker, what was his name?
Mr. Cole.
Mr. Cole. Yeah, I mean, Mr. Cole made a good point, and your survey didn't refute Mr. Cole's point because it didn't show the adjoining house to the side. We don't know how old that survey is you showed us, but.
Yes, well, it's dated, and I can bring that up. And, we wouldn't scope our surveyor to leave the bounds of the property that we control and survey someone else's private property and what their setback may or may not be, unless we had that property owner's permission.
It's still common to show adjoining properties on surveys. SEI, who prepared this, is your engineer. You use them all the time, right?
Yes, sir. They're one of our engineers.
Right. But it is not, this is a site plan drawn by the engineer tried to be based on the old survey, and
Correct.
we understand that. But I know I'm just uncomfortable with this. We've got hydrology issues, as Ms. Hoagie pointed out. We've got questions about, okay, are you going to get around? Are you going to fill it? Are you going to raise it up? I mean, again, some of these things maybe are outside the pure scope of this, but I got the feeling you're kind of giving us just a little tip of the iceberg. So, you're not really showing your whole hand of what you're going to do. Maybe you haven't decided to spend the money on a survey or full plans.
Well, I mean, our survey's dated from 2002, and it's stamped from a Georgia Registered Land Surveyor. And it was prepared on behalf of Wiseman, Nowak, Curry, and Wilco, which I think holds some clout in this room. So the property owner provided that to us under our due diligence. We gave these specific calls to our land planner engineer, and they used those calls. So, no, we did not go back out and resurvey the survey that the seller provided to us.
But you're still
prior to
asking
the
us
application.
to agree that 90 foot gets you there for the way you, and if we don't know where the front building setback line is, according to Mr. Song, that could vary, isn't that where you measure the 90 feet at?
Yes, sir. So if that would push the right lot deeper, that specific product wouldn't fit there. It'd have to become a narrower house.
I don't know. I'm just uncomfortable because I feel like there were relevant concerns by the neighbors. They haven't been consulted. We don't really know what you're going to build here, and I just...
Is there any chance that we could respectively request a deferral so we can engage the neighbors at a higher level and answer their questions more thoroughly?
I mean, I think you owe the board a little more detail on what your plans are.
Yes, sir.
I've got a couple comments and questions.
I'm done.
I don't have a problem with the survey. What this board would be called to vote on is a variance to allow a 90-foot lot. I think it's irrelevant where the adjacent house hits according to that line. For all intents and purposes, the topography of the site doesn't really serve to me as being relevant to the division. I think Brookhaven builds great houses and builds, a lot in this area. The problem I have with this is extremely basic. I see no hardship. Can you explain to me what the hardship is where you go in and purchase one lot and you want to split it into two lots that's anything other purely than economic?
It's the eyebrow cul-de-sac. That's the simplest form we can state it. And when I sat with Mr. Song in our pre-app, I said, well, that's a cul-de-sac, so we only need 35 feet of road frontage. He said, well, no, because the cars can drive right past there. It's certainly not a cul-de-sac. So, understanding that, if the right-of-way was parallel and the eyebrow cul-de-sac did not exist, the house could be brought forward more. The lot width at front setback would be wider for both lots. So in terms of hardship, that's what we're hanging our hat on.
Okay.
That as well as precedent, and I apologize for not getting this to you. I thought we were actually going to be heard in July, but the owner actually did get a zoning certification letter from DeKalb County many years ago that's stating it's a conforming lot division, 15,000 plus square feet each, and had conforming frontage. So they kind of have been living with that understanding now since they've owned the property more than a decade. In terms of hardship, the 10-foot reduction at front building setback, we're asking that to be justified by the eyebrow cul-de-sac. And asking for just that variance. Everything else is conforming.
I just don't see how, even if there wasn't an eyebrow cul-de-sac, would the 200 feet required be there if there was not an eyebrow cul-de-sac? To split this into two conforming lots? I mean, we're saying that the eyebrow cul-de-sac's causing the hardship. But
I think the eyebrow cul-de-sac would provide for more road frontage than without it.
I guess I can see, excuse me, I can see where the road frontage would increase, but I don't see where that allows the lot width at the setback line to increase. That's my point of confusion.
It's because the lot is wider at the front and tapers back towards the rear. So if you bring it closer to Ashwoody, the lot becomes wider.
But that goes back to my earlier comment. We still don't know that you could bring that any further closer. If you were subject to average setbacks, you guys seem to be just completely disregarding the average setback rule, is essentially my concern.
Well, we'll definitely look at it. And, we can calculate it and show if it's any deeper than 35 feet, then we'll show it.
It is. I mean, if we apply average setback, the yellow line would be the average setback, and you wouldn't be able to put the house.
What's the dimension on that yellow line?
I'm just saying average setback. I didn't scale it out, sir.
Okay.
I'm just saying that if you compare the houses on either side and, build this one within that, then this
Understood.
one doesn't meet the average setback.
Understood. So, yeah, I mean, if the houses get pushed back another 10 or 15 feet, then I think the feasibility wanes greatly.
And all this is why you're asking us to make a decision on incomplete, I feel, information.
Is there any chance we could get more time to do a better job for you? Okay. Thank you.
any other questions? Questions?
Thank you.
Generally, when there is neighborhood opposition like this, this board does like to defer the case, ask the builder in the neighborhood to get together and work out the differences. I'm somewhat inclined not to do that in this case because I think there are enough other issues with this division that I don't see that a deferral is going to serve any purpose. I believe that, if anything, it will just increase our caseload next month or the month prior, and we'll be right back here discussing the underlying issue of if the average setback applies and you have to push those houses back, you don't have a 90-foot lot width. At the same time, if we were to deny the application, I'm certainly not inclined to approve the application. If we were to deny the application, the applicant is left with a 2-year window on that property before they can reapply.
Property owner would be left with that.
Sorry, yes, the property owner, not the applicant. And I don't feel that that is the right answer either. I would personally like to see the applicant withdraw the application.
My only comment is I'm actually fine with the request, because at the end of the day, if they can't work out the front yard setback issue, that's their problem. That's not what we're talking about today. The only question we have is, do we let them divide the lot, or go proceed for an application to divide the lot? So as I see it, we're not talking about where the house is going to sit or any other issue. We're just saying, can they go forward and make the application to divide the lot? I don't have any problem with that. I think if they want to take the risk of buying this property and assuming they can take all those risks, that's the risk they're going to take. And so that's why I don't have a problem going forward. I'm okay with the deferral, but I'm actually okay with the underlying question of going forward, because if they want to take the risk and buy this property and they try to build a house and they can't get the front yard setback variance, and that's their risk, not ours.
I'm still uncomfortable because the front setback variance, the front setback line determines where you measure 90 feet. So they're asking us to approve 2 lots 90 feet wide, and we don't have a survey to verify the width. Even the site plan doesn't draw distances at the point of the setback line. So, I mean, I just think it's a deficient application. So
But that's their risk.
Are we going to reward a deficient application by giving them time to amend it and improve it, or?
I just think at the end of the day, that's their risk. If they can't get it done through the staff approval or through this board down the road. They're not trying to build a house with these dimensions. We're just giving them the opportunity to do so. And that's their risk, not, so if they're willing to take that type of a risk, at the end of the day, this is just the first step in a long process for them.
I agree. I have a question for council maybe, or staff. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
If we granted a variance that gave them 90-foot lot width at the front setback side, and then they couldn't achieve that based on the way the front setback was determined and the final survey and everything else they'd have to do at step 2, wouldn't this variance be pretty much worthless if they couldn't meet the standards they set up for themselves in the variance?
Yes, that would be correct. I mean, it could end up where the lot width essentially maybe even far less than 90. Then it would
89 feet.
Right, if it's
then the variance
89,
doesn't
whatever
help.
the case may be, there is that possibility. If that was the case, then the approval of this matter before you right now would not be applicable, in that they wouldn't be able to move forward unless they were to come before the board again asking for additional variance.
Which you would not be able to grant under the criteria.
That's why it's their
Right.
risk. If they want to go forward and take a shot at it,
So are you recommending approval, or?
I would
just-
say recommend approval, because we're just the first step in a process. They still have to go back to the staff, still have to go through all the steps. We're just saying they want to take a shot at it, see if they can make it work.
Mr. Song, at what point would the average setback need to be nailed down? Is that before the lot would be subdivided, or is that subsequent to a subdivision of a lot at 90 feet and then they come in for a permit to build 2 houses?
The subdivision plat would not have to demonstrate the location of the home. So in the condition we listed, condition number 1, we identified that the setback would be determined at the time of permitting. That's the reason for the caveat in condition number 1. Now, it's all out on the table here now that they know that they need to be prudent and diligent in that, in planning for the future, but the actual subdivision of the property would not need to identify the proposed structure.
But I'll also add, if they do move forward with the subdivision, let's say, but then they have to come before us with a building permit in order to develop on the property, they would run into that same issue. So again, the risk is on them to move forward, knowing that fact. If the average setback was to be applied, could they even build a home on the property? Do they even move forward with the subdivision of the lot? In essence, I guess to simply answer it, the subdivision is possible with the granting. However, overall, the end result of actually developing the property would still run into the same issue that they're facing now.
It just seems to me, and maybe I'm missing something here, but it seems to me that if we grant this variance, the subdivision of the lot is more probable than possible, right? At that point, they've got 2 lots with 90-foot lot widths that assume that the front of that house can be built at the 35-foot setback. If it's anything beyond that, what do? They build a smaller house further back? That doesn't, or a smaller house at the 35-foot? I don't think they can do that without a variance.
Well, they could build a smaller house, or they could seek a recombination plat and take it back to 1 lot.
Right, but the lot width would be at the front of that smaller house, right?
Yeah.
If they had to push it back.
Yeah, I don't
which
think
would
this
not be a 90-foot lot width because of the tapered lot.
This is not a matter of how large or how small the house is to be, right? Ultimately, it's going to be determined wherever the lot width is measured based upon the applicable front yard setback. That essentially is going to be the determining factor. With that said, right now, we don't have any conclusive information to state, okay, do they have to apply the average front yard setback? That may be a possibility. It may not be. I mean, it depends, to be honest with you. One of the 2 would have that average setback requirement.
Absolutely.
It would definitely come into
Absolutely.
play. So it's really hard to say. But based upon that, and also the applicant stated, the current location of the homes were determined based upon the city's GIS. How accurate is that? We have a disclaimer on our GIS website that says, again, it's not 100% foolproof, that it's the correct location. So again, do we know exactly what the average setback may be? It appears that it may be greater than 35, but definitely 1 would be impacted by the average setback requirement.
Yeah, I also find it interesting that I have the GIS pulled up in front of me, and it doesn't show the houses portrayed the way they are on the survey. It does show at least a 10-foot side lot line on the Porter's residence there, so I have concerns over that as well. Again, I would strongly encourage the applicant to withdraw an application.
Ms. Cannon, you described that it's a series of steps. This is being the first step. The second step would be they would apply under an administrative process for subdividing lots. That means that would be your decision or you and Mr. Song's decision. So what goes into your evaluation when you make that decision? What kind of additional information would you require from the applicant in order to make that decision?
Well, we would have to go through a litany of, does it meet the requirements? What is the zoning? What are the setbacks? And of course, if we would at that time have to look at, well, they're both, one of the homes would be torn down, so there'd be vacant lots. So we'd be back at square one with what setbacks would be applicable. So we'll have to look at that. The plat itself would go through the checklist of the requirements of the dimensional requirements of the district.
So a lot of our concerns would be addressed in your process for administrative approval to
For that,
Separate.
however, it's still, the third step would be getting, achieving the permit, and achieving the permit would then have to meet the setback requirement. So that would be the third step.
And if I may add, this is different from your, let's say, what you generally find as a final plat, a subdivision. Meaning that typically if an applicant does not come before the Zoning Board of Appeals, assuming that they would meet all the requirements, generally speaking, with this process in place, and they would reference that they have a variance approved, essentially what we would have to confirm even at time when they come in for a subdivision plat, we would have to confirm if the house could even be located on the property, just for the simple fact that they went through this process before you. So that's the difference between someone that would be able to meet all the requirements up front without going through any type of variance procedure, and someone, in this case, who have come before you, and if they were to be approved, we would have to still take that into factor even at time of the subdivision request.
All right, any other questions or discussion? One here to take a stab at a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the staff's recommendation for approval with the caveat that they, staff recommendation number 1 in the staff report.
Second.
All right, we have a motion.
Who seconded? Kent?
Kent? We have a motion and a second for approval of ZBA 14-30, conditioned on the staff report.
I have a question.
Any discussion?
I have a question. If this motion does not carry, is it an automatic denial?
No, we would
Yes.
have to.
If it does not carry, then it's denied.
So my concern is the repercussions on the applicant.
Now, Mr. Curry, to clarify, I believe we would have to have a motion to deny and have that succeed, would we not? Because there could alternatively be a motion to defer.
He made a motion to approve it. If the motion fails, then it's been denied.
Could a subsequent motion not be made to
If you
defer?
want to make one in other words, in order to grant the variance, it requires majority approval. If the majority does not approve it, then it fails.
The motion fails or the application is denied?
It's as a denial, the application fails.
This
The
is-
request fails.
This is different from some of the other cases where it's like an appeal of an administrative decision by the.
Okay.
The only time we've done it both ways, or if you did a denial and then you decided to want to do an approval, you did it that way. The only time we've really voted twice was where there was a tie.
Or I think in a different situation where it was a decision on an appeal of an administrative decision of
That's
a
right.
hearing officer.
Which in those both of those instances, as I recollect, there were ties.
Well, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. We can have discussion about it, and then always be, the motion and second could be withdrawn if.
Well, I guess I would tell the board that I would vote against that motion. However, I would be in favor of a deferral to require the applicant to, A, come back with a true survey that we can rely on, and B, that he meets with the neighbors and tries to work out their concerns.
I'm not in support of the approval of this case as it stands.
I'm also not in approval.
I am not either. I would like to see some more complete information in collaboration with the neighborhood.
Then where you are right now, I would recommend that if the applicant wishes to withdraw, to request the withdrawal without prejudice, and allow you all to vote on that. Or to defer it, if you wish to,
But I could withdraw my motion.
You can withdraw your motion.
Substitute for a deferral motion.
Yes,
So
you
that
prefer
I
to defer.
Withdraw my motion and substitute with a deferral motion.
Okay, we'll make the motion to defer if you would then, Don.
I make a motion to defer to the next board meeting.
Discussion.
July 16th.
I would discuss that to say, let's go 60 days because we have such a busy agenda next.
I'm okay with that amendment.
I would support a deferral for 60 days. I think the applicant's heard what we're looking for.
And
So
you
I'll
seconded it?
second,
You
I'll
seconded?
second.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second for a
Discussion.
60-day deferral to a date certain. of
August 20th.
August 20th. We'll now open it up for discussion on the motion.
I just want to be clear, in that deferral, will this revised site plan show an average setback, or will it not?
I don't think we can ask questions at this point in time of.
Well, I guess
ask
my.
legal questions, I guess.
Well, I think what you're saying is.
My concern is there's no point. Yes,
Yes,
my concern is there is no point deferring this for 60 days if it doesn't show the average setback, because I think we're right back in the same position we're in tonight.
And your comment is heard by Mr. Thompson and all of our comments, so if he doesn't address those comments, I guess we won't be as positive on it, right? So,
All right, any other discussion?
Did you want to also recommend that he, if there is a deferral, that he reach out to the neighbors for further discussion?
Absolutely.
I think we've said that, and the request for a true current survey.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for deferral to a date certain of August 20th of ZBA 14-30, conditioned upon the applicant providing an average front setback on the survey and meeting with the adjacent property owners. Would that be correct statement? All right. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
may we have a comfort break, please?
You want to make a motion?
A motion for a comfort break?
Second.
We're going to take a 5-minute break and resume back at 9 p.m. Thank you. All right, everybody back? I don't know. I'm still torn on.
I want to talk to you about it.
All right, ready? All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting back to order. As soon as I find my agenda.
If there are any newcomers in the room who plan to speak, please fill out comment cards, submit them to the front desk. Ms. Cannon, Mr. Song.
All right, our next case on the agenda is ZBA 14-33. Kevin Nelson, Cobalt Contracting, reduced the side yard setback from 7.5 feet to 3.3 feet to enclose an existing carport and add a second story to the same structure at 1852 Georgian Terrace. Then get the staff report first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The case before you, again, is to reduce the side yard setback from 7.5 feet to 3.3 feet. As you can see from the site plan submitted by the applicant, there currently is an existing carport that is representative of a setback of 3.3 feet. The applicant is looking to incorporate a wholesale redevelopment, remodeling of the home. I believe it's currently a single story. They're looking to add a second and third story possibly. It's unclear as to the fact if they're going to add a second story on top of the garage, but essentially staff felt that as a request is not asking for a further encroachment, it's essentially enclosing what's currently existing as a carport. We felt that the application would be possible and appropriate, and therefore has recommended approval. Staff would stipulate to the report and to the condition. Thank you.
All right. Go ahead, the applicant. There you go. Can you press that button there until it turns, hold it down until it turns green? Now, there we go.
There we go. Better.
All right. Thank you.
Kevin Nelson, Cobalt Contracting, 1864 Georgian Terrace. Pretty short and sweet here. Have an existing single-family residence, single-story or one-floor, single-story carport. We're looking to enclose the carport into a garage and add a second-story addition on top of that same carport, which that's dictated here in the the variance application. Full-scale remodel addition off the back inside the setbacks that will not require variance. Same family, lived there a couple years, and will continue to live there moving forward. Don't have much else.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and reserve your 9 minutes and 2 seconds for rebuttal if necessary. Do we have any speaker cards?
No, sir.
Okay. All right, then we will go ahead and close the public comment, open it up to the board for any questions or discussion. I'll start. It does not appear to be a request beyond what's already existing. I don't see an issue with the granting of this variance, especially due to the fact we have not seen any community opposition to it.
Does the applicant have any Does the applicant have any written approval from the neighbors? Have you talked to the neighbors?
Yes, I mean, very friendly community, know all the neighbors. I've been a resident of the street 14 years. No opposition. I would assume they would have come if so, but no, I don't.
So you live on the same street?
2 doors up, yes, sir.
Oh, good, okay.
There's no other questions. I'll be happy to entertain a motion.
I move that we grant the variances applied for, let me see, the condition.
The one condition in the staff report?
Yeah, with the subject to the one condition outlined in the staff report.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion for approval and a second of ZBA 14-33, conditioned upon the one recommendation in the staff report. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
All right, our next case is ZBA 14-34, Haven REI, increase lot coverage from 35% to 50.4%, reduce the setback for an accessory structure garage from 10 feet to 7 feet, and reduce the average front yard setback from 49.5 feet to 34.5 feet for a front stoop and stairs at 2738 Belvedere Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are 3 variance requests that have been made before you. One thing that staff would like to point out, we felt that in regards to 2 of the variances, specifically related to the reduction of the setback for the accessory structure, the detached garage, in addition to the increase in lot coverage to 50.4%, went beyond the minimum necessary to afford relief, wherein if we were to take into consideration topography of the front yard, the front step, the front stoop would require the variance in order for the applicant to gain access from the front to the front of the home. And therefore, we have recommended approval of the reduction of the average front yard setback, but have recommended denial for the increase in lot coverage, as well as the reduction of the setback for the accessory structure. Staff will stipulate to the report and to the condition. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Song. Could the applicant please come forward?
Good evening. My name is Larry Hurst, and I am the owner of 2738 Belvedere. When I met my wife 6 years ago, I lived in Drew Valley, and she lived in Ashford Park, and it's always been our dream to either build or own a house in Ashford Park. In 2011, I bought this house on the courthouse steps of DeKalb County on a foreclosure. We broke ground last November, and we picked a plan that would have a detached garage because we didn't want the garage to be the focal point of the front of the house. We've built 80% of the house now, and I'm just now kind of realizing that the lot coverage is going to be way over to do the detached garage. To address some of the concerns of water runoff I'm going to install a 2,500 gallon rain barrel, which will recycle water for irrigation as well as toilets. I've got the verbal approval from David Mason, who lives to the right where the garage is, for the 3-foot setback. He's on that side. In fact, he wants to tie in to the construction process of the landscaping to resod his backyard and tie into the fence. And almost every solution we've tried to come up with, besides a detached garage, kind of creates other problems. For instance, if I make the driveway a single-car driveway, it forces everyone that visits me, or even us, to park on the street. And since it's a narrow street, I would rather them be able to park in the driveway than block the neighbors trying to get in and out of their driveway. And that's about it. If you got any questions, I'd like to reserve some time for a rebuttal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, do we have any speaker cards?
Speaker card in support, Allison Resnick.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Allison Resnick. I actually work for Haven REI. We've been working with Larry for quite some time now, and to his point, we have kind of gone around and talked about several solutions that we can have. Larry's been very active in his neighborhood since he bought the property. He's been very active with his neighbors. Since we broke ground, he made sure to reach out to all the neighbors and address any concerns or issues that there may be. We also have reached out as builders to make sure that we're being respectful of the neighborhood and not, causing any issues. No one to this point has expressed any opposition in this. Larry did put a letter out, which he also gave to Becky to present to the board. Put a letter to all the neighborhoods, let them know exactly what we were looking to do. And while it may be seeming that it's a bit excessive, it's one of those things you don't know unless you try. The topo of his lot's not allowing us to do exactly what he needs to be done. As deep as the lot is, there's only so many ways that we can construct to get to the back of the lot. As the builder on representation of Larry, we want him to have the home that he and his family dream to have and continue to improve the neighborhood in our city of Brookhaven. There are several homes in this neighborhood that have a significant amount of extra lot coverage. The home on the corner of Cheshire Way and Belvedere is a prime example of that. Granted, it's a corner home, but it's pretty much has more than lot coverage than the 35% represented. So we hope that everybody takes into consideration understanding the above and beyond measures that he is going to take to help and prevent the water runoff from affecting anybody's public welfare. Also know that we are willing to discuss and compromise on things that the board feels suitable, the neighborhood is comfortable with, that will still achieve the results that Larry's looking to have. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
No other cards in support.
Okay. Any cards in opposition?
4 in opposition, one of which does not wish to speak. The one that does not wish to speak that is opposed is Natalie Carithers.
Okay.
The 3 that do wish to speak are, the first one is Ronnie Mayer.
Okay. Mr. Mayor.
I'm Ronnie Mayer, acting president of Asher Park Homeowners Association. This is one of those I call a dog lot. Hook a leash on it. It's not a basement lot. The basement was forced on it. The owner of the property was told by 2 other builders he couldn't do what he did. I have a problem with that. I have a real problem with the owner of somebody going house to house with a $25 gift card bribing 3 or 4 people all the way around. Real problem with that. I went over there yesterday and I talked to a young lady across the street with 2 babies. Her husband is a doctor and he's out of town. She wanted to be here and her husband wanted to be here. There's no way he can stop that water of coming down that hill. I don't care what you say. He was told by 2 other builders he couldn't build that house. And there's about 80% of the builders are great builders, and this is nothing against Haven. They're great builders too. But sometimes you have to say, no, guys, we're going to turn this one down because it ain't right. And I'm tired of some of these people taking advantage of the youngness of this city and trying to take advantage. The front steps on that house, it looks like the house we had the lawsuit with on Ashford Road. and the steps are out too far. The steps were built there, and then 2 days later, the yellow sign comes up. That's not how it's done. If it don't work, it's, you know, quit playing y'all and all these people here in Brookhaven for stupid. This wouldn't happen on the other side of the railroad tracks in historic Brookhaven because they'd run somebody out of town. I appreciate y'all's help on this. We got to stop it and stop it now. There's no way a water tank will hold all this water. Go over to that house and look at it. And look how the curb is. Go down to the left of it, down the end of the cul-de-sac, and look how small those two drains are. I don't care what you do, it ain't gonna work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Steve Simony. And I apologize if I pronounced your name incorrectly.
Just right, thank you. My name's Steve Simony. I live at 2732 Belvedere Drive, which is the house directly next door to the affected property. I am, excuse me?
The right or the left?
I am on the south side, to the left, as you view it. I'm kind of deeply offended by the whole process. I first met Mr. Hurst back in November when he began construction on this house. And the part of the foundation had been poured. I asked him what he was going to build, and he described a structure 3 stories in front, 2 in the back, with a detached garage. It's always been the intention to build a detached garage. If there were going to be issues with lot coverage, it should have been addressed before construction was started. When the house is completed is not the time to do it. The reason the front steps have to be the way they are to meet the topography is because he changed the topography. He bulldozed the entire hill out from the front yard of the house in order to create a daylight basement. I think it's a classic case of let's do what we want to do and then beg for forgiveness on the backside and see if we can't get it snuck by. And I think it would be a grave injustice to grant the variances in this case. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Daryl Smith.
Daryl Smith, live at 2757 Green Meadows Lane. It is the property directly behind this house. And he's wanting to come a little bit closer to the lot line with the reduction in the setback from 10 foot to 7 foot. The house is huge as it is, and with a detached garage and a driveway coming up, I'm going to be subject to headlights, you know, coming in at night. I'm sure they're going to be shining in the back of my house. And I just request that you deny the setback and the additional lot coverage as the staff has already recommended. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No other cards? Okay. I believe Mr. Hurst did reserve some time.
First of all, the house was never denied by any builders to build this house. I don't know what Ronnie's talking about. The gift card, I put out gift cards before I broke ground that were Starbucks, just apologizing for all the mess that comes along with building the house. And then to explain all the variances, which I did not anticipate the variances, frankly, I put out another letter with a Marshall's gift card to everyone, but the gift card specifically said this is not tied to the variances. It's to apologize for the ongoing mess that the construction process creates. The front steps were part of the original, the front steps have already been built because they were approved by the original building plan of the house. And what happened is those steps are not covered, so they were not part of a front setback. I think recently Brookhaven has decided to count any steps whether they're covered or not. So the covered part of that porch adheres to the front setback. So that's why that wasn't an issue then. As far as the back of the house, if you have a detached garage, the cars are going to come up and the lights are going to hit the garage. So there's no rear setback request. It's a side setback. So anybody on the back of the house, you're actually not going to have any lights hitting you because the garage would block that. Seems like there was something else that somebody objected to. As far as Steve, I apologize to Steve if he thinks I misled him. It was my intention to build this house with a detached garage. Like I said, that's what we always wanted. It's not normal. Usually people build a big garage on the front, and I can certainly do that, but we would prefer to do the detached garage, and the setback really makes a detached garage almost impossible if you think about it, because just the sheer length of that driveway makes a detached garage almost impossible, which we just prefer that look, not to have the garage on the front. Again, the main issue as I saw it was storm runoff, and I'm going to capture 2,500 gallons of storm runoff hopefully every time it rains. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hurst. All right, we'll go ahead and close public comment and open it up to the board for any questions.
Question for Mr. Hurst. On the back of the proposed garage, there are some stairs. Is that what those are? And why do you need stairs back there?
There's a storage area above there. The feeling was is that if the stairs were, if the stairs were originally put on the left side, so you could get up there, and we felt like that was going to create more lot coverage, whereas if they're on the back, if it's just going to be storage, we were going to put them on the back and it would be just gravel back there, so it wouldn't be additional coverage. If you put them on the side, the feeling was it would have to be on a concrete pad, and that would just make the lot coverage even more.
So you're saying there's an attic above the garage?
There's an unfinished attic above the garage.
And you can't do an interior drop-down stairs or something?
If you do an interior drop-down stairs, it would make the, it's only a two-car garage, so the feeling was is that would make the garage too small to put two cars in.
And I just can't read because it's too small. This area on the back of the house, what is that? I can't read that.
Screen porch.
Screen porch, okay. Yet you need, why do you need all this concrete in front of the screen porch? I mean, we're talking about lot coverage ratio. Why does that have to be impervious surface?
There's a, I can show you this. There's two doors that come off the back of the house, and they come off onto a patio.
Came with your package. Was that before the screen porch was built?
That's not my house.
Part of this packet. Okay.
If you look at the screen porch, where the patio is, there's two exterior doors that come off the kitchen, and if they didn't have a patio, they would just come off into the ground.
You could do a stoop, and then you've got a driveway. I mean, you've got a walkway going behind the patio, too?
Going behind the screen porch.
Behind the screen porch, yeah.
That's a small, that's not a real important area. That's an area, I've got a lot of grills and smokers, so my choice was to put them behind the screen porch where they couldn't be seen. So all that is a pad back there where the grills would be instead of being out in the middle of where everyone could see them.
Okay. Mr. Bolia, you have a question?
When I went to visit the house in the back, it looks like you've got a fireplace. I guess the picture's not back up. You got a fireplace and you had a, looks like you have some kind of a impervious surface back there. Have you looked at taking some of that out? This area back right by here? In addition, have you looked at using pervious surfaces for your driveway to reduce your?
No, but I'm open to anything, including, you know, considering not doing the detached garage. I mean, personally, I like that look, but you could always just put the detached garage right where everybody puts it, which is on the right side of the front of the house. The problem in doing that now is we've already built the house, and it could be done, but I think it would just make the house look strange. Also, I like houses that you can get to the back of the yard in case anything happens in the back of the yard. it's nice to be able to get to the back of the yard rather than having to walk everything back there.
But have you looked at an estimate of what your lot coverage would be if you made the driveway a pervious surface and took out all of that concrete or whatever, pavers or whatever you're putting back there?
No, I have not. I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't really know what I've heard. There's impervious concrete that you can use for a driveway, but I'm not familiar with it.
There's
one other issue, please. The reason that I did not do all of this at once, even though I told Steve I was doing an attached garage, there was always that intent, but I didn't have the money for the garage. When I met my wife, I lived in Drew Valley. She lives in Ashford Park. We sold my house to break ground, and I always knew to build the garage I had to sell her house, and so we sold her house on Toby in April, which gave me the money to then go forward with the garage. So that's really the basis of the timing and why I didn't do it all at once, was because I simply didn't have the money, and I didn't want to borrow too much money to build the detached garage at the same time. There was no conspiracy, I assure you.
I'd like to go ahead and add some comments. I will say, in Mr. Hurst's defense, there is nothing cheaper about going back and building a detached garage after the entire house has been built. So it's not a, it's costing more money, if anything. I don't have an issue with I don't see as much of an issue with the front setback because it was originally approved for this staircase when they originally got their permit. You sent a letter to us, Mr. Hurst, though, when we get back to the garage, about how you you needed to move the garage 3 feet closer to that. You needed a reduction to 7 feet so you wouldn't have to have a turnaround. But, I mean, you've got a good 50% of the backyard paved. So, I mean, you're saying that this doesn't represent a turnaround as it is, but you don't think there's a way to rotate that garage and pull it 3 feet forward to eliminate that 7-foot variance?
The only reason, frankly, that variance, it's relatively irrelevant to me, the side setback. The only reason I requested that was because it gets the garage straighter with the driveway so that when you pull up, we're never putting our cars in the garage. The garage is going to be used to store stuff. So I want to be able to pull a car straight up and then back it straight back. So if you put the garage to a left angle, then you're pulling up and then going at the garage at a funny angle, and then when you back out, you're trying to back out at an angle to get down the driveway. So you would almost always have to try to turn around. And I've never really looked at that driveway as a turnaround. We intend to pull up the driveway and pull straight back, just like most people do, without a turnaround. That was the intention.
Okay. My main issue is with the variances, though, is the 50% coverage. By pouring a driveway like that, you've proposed installing a 2,500-gallon detention system that's going to catch all of your roof runoff, but that doesn't do anything for your driveway. It doesn't do anything for your patios or your sidewalks. Based on my math, the driveway area, you have 2,268 square feet of driveway, 548 square feet of uncovered patio, and 127 square feet of front sidewalk. So you've got 2,943 square feet of impervious or concrete material there, or 23% of your entire lot area. If you were to substitute that out for a pervious solution, you would be at like 27% lot coverage, so there would be no need for a variance there. A pervious solution that we have recommended in the past to several other people that have come before us for variance is pavers with spaces between them, which have gravel between them, and that's going to slow down the velocity of water. Because you have that, I mean, you could just make the driveway a pervious solution and come in underneath the 35% threshold. You know, you're looking for a reduction of, I wrote it down somewhere. You need to remove about 1,962 square feet to comply and not request a variance, and your driveway's 2,200 square feet is drawn. So if you were to just change that out to a pervious solution, I think that's going to solve a lot of issues by slowing down the velocity of the water. I think any type of solution like that that allows it to absorb as it's coming down is going to mitigate some of it. So because there is an availability of that, is that something that you would consider, is putting in a pervious solution? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, are you saying that basically he could build his two-car garage, if we didn't give him the side setback, he'd just have to shun it over a little bit, and he could build his two-car garage without any coverage variance or setback variance? Is that what I'm hearing?
Used a pervious surface.
If he used a pervious type of drive, then there would be no need for a coverage variance.
Okay. Did you count the actual additional garage roof area?
No. All I counted is I counted the driveway. What I counted was area that could be switched from impervious to pervious. You know, and open, uncovered patio, sidewalk, and concrete driveway to me fall under categories where that could be substituted. And just with the change in the drive alone, it would bring the lot into compliance. So, you know, that's a solution that we have used several times in the past. I realize we don't operate on precedent, but it sounds like the applicant would be willing to consider that.
So we could follow the staff recommendation, and he'd have to replan this and maybe revise his design, but he could still have a garage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he could still have a garage and still have driveway access to it. I'm just of the, you know, just speaking honestly, the only non-self-imposed hardship that I see of the three variances you're requesting is for the front porch. I think that there's an easy solution to the lot coverage by just changing out your material. And I think there's a way that you can move the garage over a few feet to keep it in compliance. But I agree that you were granted a permit originally that showed that front stoop and staircase on it, and that's what you built that stoop and staircase on. It wasn't the matter of, as it was suggested, which I completely understand why, doesn't appear to be a case of building it and then asking for the variance later. I mean, I do understand, and it was confirmed by staff that it was originally approved as the way it's drawn.
I'd like to know what Ms. Resnick thinks.
Say that's her client. She thinks what he wants.
Well, I'm saying I want to know what she thinks of your suggestions.
I appreciate Tim's cooperation and wanting to work with the applicant and the homeowner in order to provide a solution that works for everybody. You know, I think that a lot of times in these things, there's a lot of hearsay, there's a lot of opinion, but at the end of the day, we were hired as a builder to build a home for his growing family, and I think it's stated clearly that, yes, the front stoop and stairs was approved back November 4th by Carl Carver, who no longer is with us, unfortunately. And there's really wasn't even any reason to bring that up again. However, we're happy to comply, however. As far as the switching from impervious to pervious, absolutely. No reason that can't be a consideration. We went into this knowing that this wasn't going to be clear cut. Yes, everybody, let's jump on board and do it. So as we always are willing to work with the neighborhood and do as the city sees in the best interest, we're happy to follow his recommendation and appreciate it.
I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Mayor a question, because he obviously wants to speak. So, Mr. Mayor, if you could come up here and let me ask you a quick question. With the switch out to a pervious solution, that's obviously going to slow down the velocity of any water.
I just want to know, you're right, it'll slow it down, but is the city responsible for raising the curbs up across the street and putting a hump on these, at least two houses, their driveways? Because I don't care, that driveway, it's going to come down from up there. It's wider, it's bigger, and even though, I mean, and I appreciate the chance to impervious, but I've never heard of a two-car garage being used just for, not to put cars in. I'd love to have a stipulation in here that he's not going to turn that into a rentable apartment in a subdivision full of single homes. I'd like to put that into the stipulations if we could, that he's not going to turn that into a rentable apartment up there. But I just want to know who's going to be responsible for those houses being flooded, because you need to raise up the curb and put a hump on the at least two or three driveways there. Is he responsible for that? Or is the homeowner going to have to do it himself, which I don't think is right? Like I say, this whole thing, it was a dog lot to begin with. I'm not happy about this, and if this passes and everything goes through, it almost makes me want to leave, because it's not right, and I'm just, if it goes through and everything, I'm just wasting my time coming up here. My time's worth a lot of money, and I could be home doing other things, and it's just that you have people that have taken advantage of the new city, and like I say, you know, he knew it from the get-go, and it was a dog lot, and he shouldn't have done what he did and raised it up and all this stuff and ruined the lot, and then he's trying to play y'all for stupid, and if y'all pass this with steps out front, you're going to do the same thing like you're doing over on Ashford Road. There's going to be a lawsuit because the neighbors are tired of it. They're sick of it. Ashford Park is being destroyed one house at a time, one street at a time, because it's not right. And it's either a law protecting these people or something, but something, it needs to stop somewhere, whether it's here or the next house, but you're going to keep having lawsuits costing the city, because that set of steps out there, it don't look good, it ain't right. It's just, how would you like it beside your house? You wouldn't. And you wouldn't want to live across the street from it, having all that water going. Who's going to pay to raise the curb up? You know, who's going to pay for his house when it's flooded? Is the city or y'all? I don't think so. So you need to really think about what y'all voting on. And it's not about doing the happy thing. It's about doing the right thing. Thank you.
Ronnie, I'll tell you, don't run away just yet. I'll tell you, I don't disagree with you. You know where I live. I face flood issues all the time. I feel we have a responsibility to consider the runoff from that driveway, pervious or otherwise. The fact remains, if he does it as a pervious driveway and he moves that garage off, there's nothing we can say or do to stop him from building that. So I don't think it's a matter of approval of those variances. I think he's going to have the opportunity to build exactly what he wants, albeit 3
front
feet.
yard setback, or see what they're approved.
Well, the front yard setback is a separate issue, where it was on the initial site plan that he received his permit on. They just didn't realize at the time, the city did not realize at the time that he
Because I
needed
was
a
there the other
variance.
night, we had a big storm, and 2 trees fell next door, and I was right there when electricity went out, and I watched water come from different directions that I've never seen come from before. And the guy next door says water comes from Green Meadows through his carport and down. So I wonder what's going to happen when he builds his garage or whatever it is, and water comes from next street up
There's going to
down.
be a increase in the water runoff. There is no doubt.
Yeah.
My question to Mr. Hurst is that something you're willing to entertain, is raising, I don't know what the cost would be there, but to raise the curbs up if the neighbors so chose, or to work with them in some way that the water isn't impacting their homes? Because I do feel like even with
Can't you put
pervious pavers, you're going to have a
basin?
lot of water
Can't you
flowing
put
down there.
like a drain in the driveway, a big one, like they have in apartment complexes, and at least run the pipe to the street and over?
Mr. Chairman, I mean, you're looking at either approving variances or changing them with conditions. I don't think, as far as the comments as to what possibly can be done or not, are in order here. I also just want to make it clear, as far as the front yard setback, even though it was permitted, it was permitted in violation of the ordinance, and therefore you are under no obligation, unless it's a moral obligation, to approve the front yard setback variance.
Can I say a couple of things?
I think it would have to be addressed in a question. Would you like to
Well,
ask
I'd like to follow up with Mr. Curry right quick. If the board did decide to deny that front yard setback, what alternative does the homeowner have there when he has bulldozed the hill, raised his house up, and has a second-story entrance on the front of the house?
Well, I'm not here to argue what he can or cannot do. I'm just telling you that under Georgia law, the issuance of a permit in violation of the ordinance is not a legal permit. So, I mean, that's why he has asked you for this variance in order to do this. You know, if he moves the steps, where the variance, the issue is you have 10 feet and he's gone beyond the 10 feet as far as that open porch goes. I'm not a proponent of either. I'm just telling you what the law is.
Understand. Appreciate it.
I'd like to add to that, if I may. And I'm not sure which way the board is headed, but if you are leaning towards the pervious paver system, we would like to add the caveat that would require approval of our development services manager and city engineer.
I think if we were to go towards that route, it would be a denial of those variances, or we would.
No, you could grant the variance, but you could make that a condition.
We don't need to grant.
We don't need to grant the variance.
You don't get your
The
impervious
applicant
surface.
wouldn't need a variance to install a pervious solution driveway. They would come in under the 35% threshold, therefore they wouldn't require.
I misunderstood what you were saying, Chairman. Sorry.
So,
I
I don't know if
would,
it'd be a
however-
denial, we would probably just ask.
We'd be following
Exactly.
staff
I would ask.
recommendation.
Right.
I don't think we should follow staff recommendation there. I think we should ask the applicant to withdraw those two variance requests. Keep in mind, if they are denied, the applicant cannot come before the board for 2 more years to request some lesser variance should he need it. If he doesn't need a variance.
I guess the point being, what Mr. Self could be referring to is that even if there was an impervious solution and it still didn't, the math still didn't work, they'd have to come back for another variance or change the solution.
I guess the question to the applicant is, are you okay with withdrawing your request for increasing the lot coverage from 35 to 50.4%, and also withdrawing your request for the side yard setback from 10 to 7 feet?
Can I say one more thing? There was a house there that I bought as a rental house. It had a concrete driveway that went to the top. So the runoff was already there from that driveway running straight down at a much steeper angle with much more velocity. I've cut into the bank to make the driveway much flatter. So any water that's coming down there, while it might be more in volume, is going to come down at a much slower rate than what was already there. Also, it doesn't compare with Ashford Road. When I wanted to build this house, I didn't even know what a front setback was. The covered portion of this house is right at the setback. I would have loved to have pulled this house forward a little bit to give me a little more of a backyard, and I was as enraged as everyone else when that house at Ashford was 14 feet, violating the front setback. So I don't compare what I've done with this house to the Ashford Road controversy in any way. I went out of my way to build this house in compliance with the front setback.
Understood. The one remaining question I have on the front stoop there, is there a way to, I don't recall what the, it looks like it's about 15 feet in the front yard. is there a way to build access to that second-story entrance within the 10-foot setback that you are allowed for stairs?
Not without tearing the existing structure down and.
The existing house or the existing
No,
stairs?
The existing stairs. The stairs go up, and then the covered part, which was included in the setback, the way we understood it, it was approved based on the covered part of the house. So that covered part of the porch is at the setback. So in order to move those stairs, you'd have to tear the stairs out, and I think they would probably have to come down into the driveway, I guess. I don't know. There wouldn't, you'd like get out of your car. If you pulled up right there, the stairs would probably be right where the driveway is right now.
I'll tell you, the way I see that, that front yard setback, yes, it was on the permit as originally applied, but given the ordinances, it is an invalid permit at this point. And I don't see any hardship there that isn't self-imposed. You went in with the bulldozer, dug out a hill, which increased the need for additional steps to get up to your entrance. It seems to me, it was all in the effort to have a daylight basement. You could have easily had what Mr. Nama calls a Yankee basement, where it was fully enclosed, still had a basement, and your stairs would have been much shorter, much more narrow, just by not digging out the hill.
Well, imagine this house is the same as most houses go down from the road. So my house is the exact opposite. So the only way to put a basement on this house and not have a daylight basement would be to have gone to the top of the hill and literally dug a giant hole, which I felt would have created massive drainage problems. It wasn't that I was obsessed with a daylight basement as much as every house that is cut into a lot, because it was important to us to, on the main level, to be at ground level on the back side of the house, which is the exact opposite. Most houses, you're at the level when you come in the front. So it wasn't really a obsession or desire to have a daylight basement on the front. It's just that's how it made sense to build the house, rather than digging down. No matter how I built that house, I think I would still have a daylight basement, because the steepness of the lot, I don't see how we could build that existing house and it not be daylight. And so again, I just used the covered setback that I felt I was allowed, which was, I think, 40 feet, if memory serves. So the covered part of the house is right at the 40, because like I said, originally I would have loved to have moved the house back a little bit, I'm sorry, forward a little bit, so that I didn't have such a small backyard.
Mr. Simone, how do you feel about the front steps setback?
I think that the front steps protrude way too far out. If you come in, I don't know if there's any pictures, but if you look at them, the steps come down from the house to a platform that's probably 8 foot square, and then make a left-hand turn and go down to the ground. No reason why that platform couldn't be at the same elevation and directly in front of the porch, and then the steps go down directly to the side.
Mr. Song, could they build a set of stairs that's within 10 feet of the setback that wouldn't require variance?
I apologize, 1 second.
Thanks, take your time.
While we're waiting, I'd like to ask Ms. Resnick her thoughts on that question.
I definitely just wanted to clarify a point. When we permitted this job back in November, the front stoop and steps was not a part of the ordinance. That's why it was approved and it went forward. When we applied for this variance, we did not apply for any variance to the front setback. After I had submitted it, Aranda let me know that it had been added to it. It had not been discussed with us that it was added. I was given the sign and it was added to it. And when I questioned this, I was told that it just became a part of the ordinance in March, and therefore they had to add it in even though it had already been approved. So I just wanted to clarify that it wasn't, I was trying to do it intentional. It literally wasn't a part of the ordinance at that time. As we all know, the city of Brookhaven is continually growing and adopting new interpretations every day, and we as builders are trying to work with that and keep up as much as possible.
Yeah, and one last thing, the first I heard that I was applying for a front setback was when the sign went up.
Yep.
And I immediately called her and said, why does this sign say I'm applying for a front setback? I'm not applying for a front setback. And then that's when we learned that the interpretation was now to include uncovered steps. And so I was as shocked as anybody that that was actually on the sign. And the letter that went out to the neighbors trying to explain what I was doing actually says in there, I did not apply for a front setback.
I was there.
Because I already had the building permit. We felt it was in compliance.
Just as a matter of clarification, while my tenure as city attorney has not been during the entire duration of the city, I was appointed in October 2013, and there has not been an amendment to the zoning ordinance with respect to this matter. There would have had to have been public notice, public hearings, and that's not the case.
Further to that point of clarification, has there been a change in the interpretation of said ordinance?
None that I'm aware of, because, you know, in the past, this issue has been dealt with as far as this same situation. And there has been adjustments that have been made to the structure. I think while we had the issue on Trentwood, there was, you know, this one's not that severe, but still that was, you know, part of the issue.
In Trentwood, if I remember correctly, they ended up having to tear off their front porch altogether.
That's
but
right.
Their entrance was at kind of the base elevation where it really wasn't a big issue
That was
for them.
with the, because, again, it was an average front yard setback issue which affected the whole house, and they had to tear the whole porch off.
Yeah.
We're counting 34.5 feet. We're counting from here, road.
Yep. Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Song, do we have an answer to the earlier question? Could a stoop porch, however you want to phrase it, steps be built within the 10-foot setback without the need for a variance?
Yeah, I mean, it would require a redesign, but that's a possibility. And the 10 feet extends from the calculated average front yard setback. What Mr. Hurst is referring to, the porch in itself, per the site plan, they do meet the setback requirement for the porch.
Okay.
But it's the question of the front stoop and the stairs. That could only encroach 10 feet beyond that average setback. However, it appears from the site plan, if you measure it out, I believe it's close to approximately 15 feet beyond the average setback. So it's 5 feet further than it should be allowed to be.
So I guess the way I'm seeing it is to avoid a variance, you could redesign the stairs, bring it off the side, or just bring it out on a platform and then straight over.
You have 10 feet either for the stoop or for the stairs. So if the stairs went toward the street, that would be part of the 10 feet.
Okay.
Any more questions?
Let's move on to the next stage.
Happy to entertain a motion.
I don't know that we have.
Turn on my microphone and be happy to.
I don't know that we have heard from the applicant if they wanted to withdraw the other two application, or variance requests, or if those would be denied. But it doesn't sound like the board was in favor of approving.
I believe Mr. Hurst said that he was in agreement with withdrawal of the coverage and the.
Okay, I missed that. Thank you.
Side setback variance.
Is that right?
Absolutely.
All right, so.
Doesn't he need to state for the record that he withdraws those, right? I mean.
Just stated that
He
he would be
can,
happy. We would have
I
to
would
vote on it.
suggest you go ahead and approve the withdrawal without prejudice.
Yeah, I'll go ahead.
We
and
have,
move
because
to-
there are other issues. I look at a withdrawal when you withdraw the whole application. I'm not comfortable in withdrawing a part of an application without your approval.
Yeah, in that light, I think, if I can get my computer to respond again, I'd like to, I guess, assign a number to the variance request, since they are not numbered at this point, and move to withdraw number 1 to increase the lot coverage from 35% to 50.4% without prejudice, and as well to withdraw without prejudice number 2 to reduce the setback for an accessory structure garage from 10 feet to 7 feet. And Mr. Curry, can we handle the third in a separate motion?
Yes, once those are withdrawn.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for withdrawal without prejudice.
I think it's approval of a withdrawal.
Approval
request.
of withdrawal without prejudice for variances number 1 and 2 as stated by Mr. Self. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
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 All those opposed? All right, those two items are withdrawn. Now we are dealing with the reduction of the average front yard setback from 49.5 feet to 34.5 feet for a front stoop and stairs. Discussion or motions?
Hearing no other, I'll make a motion to deny the application on the basis that we have heard from staff that the ordinance has not changed, the interpretation has not changed, and there is the opportunity to build access to the entrance within the setback, the 10-foot setback allowed. I don't feel there's any need for the variance.
Okay.
I agree, it's not a hardship.
Is that a second?
We're seconding or?
I didn't hear
agreeing?
second there.
Sorry, I withdraw my comment.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion for denial of variance number 3, reduce the average front yard setback from 49.5 to 34.5 feet. Do I hear a second?
Okay, I'll second if nobody else will.
All right, we have a motion and a second for denial of variance number 3 to ZBA 14-34. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I've just got a question. If we vote for the denial, where does that put the applicant? He has to go back and basically redesign the front?
No, just the steps.
Just, oh, no.
He repositions the steps within 10
He's got to
foot.
do it within 10 feet
That's
of
right.
the existing.
He can still build steps.
And note, as of yesterday, the steps were not complete. The steps themselves are there, but there's no railing, there's no, I don't think it's that much of an
Yeah, it
ask.
wasn't much when I saw it this weekend.
I'm a bit torn here because I understand the value of the average front setback. I am torn by the fact that even though it's unenforceable, the applicant does have an approved site plan. And the applicant has also withdrawn 2 items at our request that are controversial. So I'm not as inclined to support a denial of this application, but I understand the basis for it. It's just.
Are you able to point to any hardship that is not self-imposed?
Yes, that he received an approved building permit. Whether it be invalid or not. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor of the denial of item number 3 for ZBA 14-34, which is to reduce the average front yard setback from 49.5 feet to 34.5 feet, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
What was the vote? Which way?
Denied.
Okay. The application is so denied.
No, to deny the denial.
Deny the denial.
The motion did not pass.
The motion did not
The motion
pass.
failed 4-3.
I make a motion to approve the reduction, the average front yard setback from 49.5 feet to 34.5 feet with staff stipulation number 1.
All right, we have a motion for approval of item number 3,
I'll second.
and we have a second. Conditional upon the staff recommendation. Any discussion? Any discussion? All right. All right, seeing as there's no discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Opposed.
Okay. Okay, the motion so passes. All right, moving on to the next case. ZBA 14-35, Brookhaven Homes LLC, to reduce the rear yard setback from 30 feet to 15 feet to develop a 26-lot, single-family detached subdivision at East Roxborough Road, with the address as stated, on East Roxborough, Wright Avenue, and North Druid Hills Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Essentially, the applicant is requesting a blanket variance that would be applicable to all lots, all 26 lots except for, out of the 26 lots except for 22, 23, 24, and 25. That's closest to the northwest corner of the subject property. They're asking to reduce the rear yard setback from 30 to 15 feet in order to rear load the homes and to set back the homes as far as possible from the major thoroughfares that are North Druid Hills and East Roxborough Road. Staff has recommended approval and will stipulate to the report and to the condition. Thank you.
All right. Could the applicant please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm Doug Dillard, Wiseman, Nowak, Kerr, and Wilco. This, we hope, is the end of about a 5-year saga. This property was originally assembled by Doug Morris back in 07, 08. We originally applied for a mix of uses. There's some 8 to 10 property owners that participated in this rezoning. It resulted in the creation of a new zoning ordinance under the DeKalb ordinance, it's RCND. And we zoned it for over 40 condos. The crunch hit everybody, and condos were not an available remedy, even though Susan, after your incorporation, gave us an interpretation that they did qualify as single-family residences. So we came in and zoned it RA8 in January of this year, after the corner had been zoned, I believe it's zoned R60, hadn't it been? Back about a year ago. We zoned it subject to the site plan that you have before you and showed the variances to the city council at the time we asked for the zoning. But since there is no concurrent variance at this time, we'd come before you to ask for your grant of the variance. We satisfy all the criteria under the ordinance as set forth both in our application and by the staff analysis. The staff's recommendation of approval subject to this site plan is acceptable to us. I have representatives of Brookhaven here if you have any questions, and I would ask that you favorably approve it, and I'll reserve my remaining time for rebuttal or any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diller. Do we have any speaker cards? Okay. All right. You don't need to rebut anything? All right. All right. I'll go ahead and open it up to the board for any questions or any discussion.
Bill, on your site plan, the words proposed green space are written into this island, and then it's crossed out. We don't know
Well,
what that means.
Susan can correct me, but we crossed out that as a designated lot. That was the 27th lot. So we crossed it out as a designated lot. The conditions of zoning require that it be green space. So the setback requirements really don't apply to that property because we're not going to put a building on it.
I think the X came before the proposed green space, right?
Right.
Well, to the extent if we approve this, it'd be site plan specific. I'd just like the record to show that that's not proposed as a lot and that it will be developed as green space.
Absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I don't recall if we closed the public hearing or not.
Close. Well, we'll go ahead and close public comment.
Thank you, sir.
And open it up to the board for discussion. Excuse me. That's all right.
Play back the tape.
I think I understand what you're saying, Jed. I think what got approved was a 26-lot subdivision.
That's
So
correct.
I think that,
That's correct.
and there's 26 lots shown here. I think that the variance is for, the majority of these lots is for a safety reason, to pull the homes off of the busier streets. It's going to push the houses back towards into the property, but all those property owners are going to have the same benefit. So I see no reason not to support this variance.
To kind of clarify for the record what Tim stated, the only people affected by reducing the rear yard setbacks are the people who will buy all of these houses, and they will be uniform in appearance. I presume they'll have garages in the back.
They're all rear entry.
And they'll all enjoy the same benefit.
Right,
Yeah.
so it's a kind of it was almost maybe not a condition of zoning, but an anticipated outcome.
And I live less than 2 or 3 blocks from this property, and I think it's great they only have one access and entrance point on right. I think that's going to be helpful for traffic purposes, and when it's appropriate, I'll be ready to make a motion.
So this alley on the site plan doesn't provide any road access?
No, everything goes out onto right.
I think it's appropriate, Mr. Bolia.
Make a motion, do pass with staff stipulation on ZBA 1435.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of ZBA 14-35 as conditioned in the staff report. Any discussion? As there's none, all those in favor of the approval of the motion, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next case is ZBA 14-36, Kenneth Wood, to reduce the front yard setback along Remington Road from 35 feet to 31 feet at 1795 Colt Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The request, the subject property is a corner lot located at the intersection of Colt Drive and Remington Road. Essentially, being that it's a corner lot, the city does not apply the average front yard setback, and therefore the applicable setback requirements as per the zoning, in this case R100, would be appropriate. Based upon the fact that there is an existing home that has been vacant for several years, the applicant, who has recently purchased a home, has made this request to essentially reduce the front yard setback associated along Remington Road from 35 feet to 31 feet. And again, it's to accommodate an existing structure. Based upon that fact, staff has recommended approval and will stipulate to the report and to the condition. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Song. If the applicant could please come forward.
Kenneth Wood, 1809 Remington Road. And can I understand, is it 10 minutes for the applicant and an additional 10 and 10?
That is correct.
Okay.
10 minutes for the applicant, 10 minutes for people to speak in favor of the application, and 10 minutes for people to speak in opposition to the application.
And I have a PowerPoint just so you guys can follow along. Can I hand
Okay.
those out? Ben had
Sure.
mentioned I could.
Put them up. Deal with these.
Or should I put them on easels?
Nope.
Perfect.
Send that. Yeah, that's perfect.
And so this process began quite a while back for us, back toward last summer when we were looking at the property, and we got delayed on the closing all the way till December because the guy we bought it from had to go back and foreclose on the second lot that you see there. They re-advertised it and foreclosed on it. So we went forward. It was in December, purchased the home. Our understanding of it was that the home was in good standing. This was the plat. We did our open records request through DeKalb County. They had variances, demolition, permits, all showing this reduction in the front yard setback, and so we moved forward. The history of the project, the original developer, I've come to know a lot of people in the neighborhood they were really bad about the way they approached this and what they tried to do. What they did is, as you see that was the plat that was put forth, and it was a very strange shape, and along with that, they got approvals through DeKalb County to subdivide the lot and have a 31.5-foot variance. So they started building the house in good standing under permits, got inspections. I have all those inspections I've included before you, and it came up until the time that the neighborhood filed a lawsuit because of the shape of the plat. The neighborhood was fighting the fact that it was going to be 2 lots and not 1 lot. And so that went forward, it got appealed, then it was upheld through the court system. At that time, there was a stop work order, and that's where you see the house today. So with the help of Brookhaven, we determined that the structure's in good standing and good condition. When we did this, when we purchased the house, and I have the bank here as well, we did all our normal research on it and did not see any of these records. Actually, we actually had a permit that was approved with the city, and we were going to pick it up, and we were called and let know of the current problems. So the city was not even aware of the current problems when we were going through this either. The next exhibit I have, this is the survey of the property. And this one might even show it better. This shows where it is. It's the section of the garage and the bathroom above that pops out. The pop out gives the house great symmetry, and we actually really love the house, love the way the architecture and the way the house sits on the lot. And we're requesting the reduction to get to 31.1 feet for the encroachment because of that pop out. And it's a corner lot, so it doesn't have the setback. We've checked the stream setback on the other side. We've checked the setback on Colt Drive, and both of those were good. Our big hardship is when you're looking at the lot, what we're faced with is there's exposed rock here where you can actually see it when you walk onto the property. There's a 24% slope that goes to the back, and then you have the stream buffer. And so the house is really in the best position for the lot. They had to get into the rock a lot when they were blasting in order to get it in there, but they got it in there, and so how it sits right now is its best position. It also faces to the north, which is really good. We basically the way we closed on our loan, we closed on our loan as if it was just a remodel, so that we were just finishing the house. So we've been making full payments since we closed on it, and also living in temporary status. I also have a bunch of photos, and I have some additional where I went around and measured, there's several other corner lots in the area. I was trying to look at, precedents, how is this? And so I have pictures in here, and I also have other additional pictures that just show aerial views to show that the house, does not appear to be much further than a lot of the other houses in the neighborhood. Similarly, when I measured from Google, I have 4 different examples that I can pull out, time depending, that actually show that there's other houses that are just as close on the corner lots as ours, so that we don't believe there would be a precedent set for this. What I'm looking at is doing 2 things. Is as part of, if you guys so choose to approve this, I would like to request 2 things. One is that we would screen with fencing or landscaping along Colt Drive and along our south border. Mr. Jackson owns that lot, so that we have some screening there as well from the existing structure. And the other thing that's very important to the neighborhood because of all the history, and this is something I've negotiated with the neighborhood in great length, is that as part of an approval that the house would remain one lot and that would not be subdivided. And that is a condition that we are good with, and we want to make sure the neighborhood is happy. The next section is, what we've done in the process. I've taken great length to try to, come forth and bring everything I have. We sent out letters before we filed the variance to every neighbor around our house and past it. We got in touch with a lot of people. We fully researched everything. We sent an additional request that included the entire neighborhood and had an organized meeting at one of the houses, had about 15 or 16 people show up. I've also walked up and down the neighborhood to different neighbors, and I submitted the different approvals of the requests that I have gotten, which are shown here. When I saw that it was in the summer, some people weren't home, I wanted to go around and get as many as I could in the general vicinity of our house. The house is in the Dunwoody Forest. It's the subdivision that we're in. It's not a mandatory HOA, it's a voluntary HOA, and our house is not currently in it. We've really tried to reach out to all the neighbors. We've had inspections of the house by the city of Brookhaven. I also have my builder here to talk about the existing condition. It's a great house. It's in good condition. It just needs to be finished. The yard needs to be finished, and we're ready to do that and move forward first. As far as communication, what we really tried to do is hold the meetings, reach out, get comments, and respond. And I reached out to the HOA from February to May with no response, so I don't know where they stand on this. And I'll reserve the rest of the time for rebuttal.
Thank you very much. All right. Do you speak?
Any of these left?
No, we'll ask you if we need them back up. Most of that stuff's in our package. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, we have a petition in support, and we have 11 speaker cards in support.
Okay.
The first speaker would be Kate Larimer.
Okay.
Not to speak, but I'm here in support of.
Actually,
Okay.
you did. I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
It's a
Thank
trick
you.
questionnaire.
Thank you. Lauren Wingfarmer.
How close was that?
No cigar for you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Lauren Wimpheimer. I'm a real estate investor. I'm the fellow that bought the lot from a hedge fund who had bought it from Synovus, and Synovus had acquired it from the original lender. I sold it to Mr. Wood. When I purchased it, it took me about 10 months to get it done because he referenced putting the lots back together. These were some of the things that showed up in the title report. I had competent real estate counsel, as I do for all my transactions. I had title insurance, and the concept, the background of the lawsuit and the things that I've learned about subsequently, it just never came up. We had no idea. So when I heard from Mr. Wood about this, I offered my help. It had never been brought to my attention from my counsel. It didn't show up in the title report, and that's why I'm here in support I've helped him walk the neighborhood to talk to some of the neighbors, and, we're not the bank. We weren't the developer. We were, we didn't know. He couldn't have known. I didn't know. That's what I wanted to tell you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Riley.
Hi, I'm Tom Riley, and I'm here with my wife, Margie, and we're basically here as individual homeowners in Dunwoody Forest. I'm a past secretary of the Ashford Alliance, excuse my voice, long day, which was a zoning group very active in this area for many years. I'm also a past vice president of the Dunwoody Forest Homeowners Association. And we kind of reached the point in our lives here where we think in this particular issue, we're dealing with an idea whose time has finally come. Over those 8 to 10 years that house has been there, it's grown into an overgrown eyesore, which has done anything but enhance the neighborhood. And we're very, very concerned about the whole situation. You've already been familiar now with this previous speakers about the history and the basic background of the lot. We had a meeting in our neighborhood at our house where several neighbors came. Everybody was invited. And the gist we... Excuse me? Thank you. Everybody, I will say everybody was invited. I'll stick with that statement. We certainly made that attempt. Of the ones who showed up in that particular situation, from the meeting and from emails we've received from people who didn't even attend the meeting, it appears to be the general consensus that the neighborhood would like to move forward on this issue. It is one variance, it's about the length of a bathtub, and that's all that seems to stand in our way. All we'd like to say when all this is done to both Ken and Jeanette Wood are 4 words. Welcome to the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Riley.
Judy Simon.
I'm Judy Simon. I live at 1825 Colt Drive, and I've been there for 2 years. I understand the long history that's gone with this house before. I did attend the community meeting, and as far as I could tell, everything that has been an issue in the past has been resolved, with the exception of 4 feet. And the house is an eyesore. It has a lot of potential, and I think we have finally got a family that is willing to step forward and make it a home. And I'm hoping that we can get that done so we can move forward with getting the trees down and beautifying our neighborhood. Thank you.
Blake Elwine.
Good evening. I'm Blake Elwine, and I would be the builder that would be finishing the house. And just to give you an idea of where the house is at this point, the exterior is pretty much complete. Roof on, framing, siding, driveway, and interior obviously framed. Some of the plumbing was done, and then the house, that's when it came to a stop. Through several visual inspections of the house was built well to this point. Structurally, it is sound, and it's a beautiful house from the exterior. It's overgrown. It is an eyesore now, but it has a lot of potential. So, just wanted to say that the house is structurally built well, and it's it could be a beautiful place when it's finished. Thank you.
Jason Glover.
Sleep. I'm Jason Glover, and I represent Heritage Bank of the South. We provided the financing for Mr. Wood to obtain the property and to rehab it. Just 2 quick points, really, I'm here tonight to share is, like any good mortgage company or bank, we did all our due diligence on during the mortgage process and found everything to be normal. There was no notices of any variances or any problems with the title of the property or whatnot. Obviously, we would not have lent on the property if that would have come to light. After closing, Mr. Wood brought it to our attention that there was variances, and, you know, we currently still have in escrow the money to rehab the property, and there are, you know, assuming the pending variances get handled, then we will release the funds to clean up the property and finish the house. So, thank you again for your time.
Holly Sawyer Laird.
Holly Sawyer Laird, you did a great job in
Thank you.
pronouncing my name. I'm just here in support of Mr. Wood. The house is an eyesore. It's been an eyesore. I ride past it every day. I live on Remington Road. I live right across the street from him and one down, so I have to look at it every day. And I'm here to testify that he did send out the letter, which is how I got engaged in this. He has been transparent. I didn't attend the neighborhood meeting because I reached out to him, and he and I and his wife and his kids, we all spoke directly. So I'm in support of this, and it would improve the neighborhood, and we just won't tell DeKalb County tax assessor.
Laura Bees.
I'm Laura Beasy. I live at 1815 Colt Drive. I've lived there since this lot thing has been going on. It's been 8-9 years of confusion, and I feel like DeKalb County bears a lot of responsibility in this in terms of the history of the lot. I think the house was incorrectly permitted by DeKalb, but at this point it's been vacant for a number of years. The house is there. It seems like really the only solution is to make an exception at this point and let the project go forward. It will improve the neighborhood. It'll be a safer place to have another family in there. So I would support his idea of moving forward with a variance. Thanks.
Michael Evans.
Hi, my name is Michael Evans. I live at 1771 Remington Road, which is 3 houses down from the property. I sent an email to Mr. Wood and copied the planning department on it that may have been forwarded to you. So I don't want to reiterate everything I said in that, but I did want to express my support for the variance for a couple of reasons that I'll state. The first is it's a fairly minor variance. I'll reiterate what other people have said, which is that this house in its current condition is an eyesore. It never should have been built. It was malfeasance by the former director of planning for DeKalb County that allowed it to be built. Members of the neighborhood, including the current president of our HOA, spent enormous time and resources, personal time and resources, blocking this from being subdivided and changing the density. But what we have is a house with a lot of potential. It would make no sense at all at this point to tear it down or prevent that lot from reaching its potential, enhancing the values in the neighborhood, and based on the fairly minimal setback and the fact that it complies with the others, it confirms that the lot is one which was resolved but apparently never made it to the title records by the court case some of the neighbors had filed against the prior developer. But for those reasons, I would encourage that you grant the variance. Thank you.
Jeanette Wood.
I just would like to say that we were very excited to get the house in the neighborhood, despite the shape that it's in currently. After purchasing it, we found out the history of the house, but nonetheless, it seems like the portion of the house that's in question is relatively small, and we are ready to become a part of the community. We looked for a long time for a house and are ready to bring our family. We have 2 small children to clean up the house and add some vibrancy there on the lot that has been vacant for a long time. So we would love to move forward and clean it up and raise our family there. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have one card that is not noted as support or opposition.
Okay.
Garland Hart.
Oh, it's a question later.
All right. All right.
So he's in opposition. So we have no more cards in support.
Okay. Well, then let's go.
So Garland Hart.
All right.
Basically, a lot of my questions have already been answered, so they're pointless. But my question would be is...
Can you walk up to the microphone, please, sir?
I'm pretty loud. Most of my questions have been answered, but my question is, what happens to all the records? If this house is in court cases, and there were all sorts of paperwork put aside, why did they not show up in the city of Brookhaven? Why did one buyer after another, after another, after another, not have access to papers that should have been filed? And the other is, the house is near rack and ruin visually, but I don't know what it's like on the interior. And everyone would love to have that property improved. But we have a whole series of events that lead us from malfeasance to being unknowledgeable. And that lack of information through the whole follow-through process undermines home ownership and sales. And I need to give this to somebody else. But my property across the street had a lot of issues with it, including title problems, property line problems, ownership problems, and it does happen. And I would suggest a resurvey of everything and an understanding of what the property is and what the property isn't, and have that title reworked or looked at. I just know from my own experience.
Thank you.
Bill Pierce. Paul Murphy.
Hi, I'm Paul Murphy. I'm resident of the neighborhood for 18 years, resident of DeKalb for 30 years. I'm also the president of the Homeowners Association. One of the reasons I'm here today is to hopefully correct any or bring to light any inconsistencies that we believe exist on a long-standing problem that began in year 2005. The appeal that we have here today for a variance is based on several premises, one being, of course, the site plan. Oh, I'm sorry, I did not distribute all this. I apologize. Numbered at the bottom, and so, two of the major concerns that we have are the setback, the interpretation of average setbacks, and what appears to be flawed premises for the not only the site plan that was used dated back for the application for the permits was back to 2007, 2008. I'm not sure it was the correct site plan. I may stand corrected on that. I don't know. Second to that would be Brookhaven's interpretation of the average setback rule. I want to correct a statement or perhaps an unintentional mischaracterization that may have been said before. I have talked to Mr. Wood at length in January of 2014. In fact, I am the person being the homeowner, being involved in this since 2005 that brought all this documentation to light. I have been working with Mr. Song since January of 2014. I'm sorry, Ms. Cannon, since January, since we met, the only time we met, in August of 2013, and Mr. Song over the phone from January until now. I provided all the information, the history of the lot back to 2005. I'm an information manager. I have every sale, every transaction, every variance, and there were a couple things that were said that I wish to correct. It was said here in the plan here that the house was reviewed and permitted by DeKalb County. That's partially true. It was at one point in time, there were two different lot divisions that occurred from 2005 to 2006. Beyond that, a stop work after a zoning board of appeals ruled it violated subdivision and zoning code in June of 2007. Then A stop work order was issued on all lots, and you should have that. It is page 7 in your handout book. That is posted on the property and has been posted on the property since July of 2008. Mr. Woods and I have talked about that, and it's in the construction box. I don't know why it's never been opened. But I really wish to talk about I'm going to start with page 1 and go through. There's a long summary of events that happen, lot divisions, bank failures, FDIC, taking control of the lot, sale of the lot, the sale of the lot to Mr. Wimfowler and company, and then the sale to Mr. Woods. I will agree with the premise that Mr. Woods had nothing to do with that, okay? But nonetheless, what we have here is a lot of different events that contribute. If you go to page 3, in the underlined portion, after talking with both Susan Cannon and Mr. Ben Song, in late April, Mr. Song informs me that Brookhaven Planning and Zoning has interpreted Section 27-788, which you will find page 5, to Section A defines average setbacks and yard setbacks. Section C applies to corner lots, and I'll read it to you. Corner lots shall provide required front yard setbacks along all public street frontages. It does not say that average setbacks don't apply to corner lots, and it's under the heading of average setbacks is A, where it's defined, double frontage lots, and Section C on corner lots. I don't see how that interpretation occurs, and Mr. Song and I have had a lot of conversation about that, and we don't agree. I have asked for a legal opinion on it. I have asked for meetings, repeatedly asked for meetings with Brookhaven and the property owner, and I have not been successful in getting a meeting. Only time I met with Ms. Cannon was in August of 13, and our parting comments were, we need to work out a solution. This solution cannot, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many concerned neighbors, cannot involve not applying the average setback to this lot. Now, I asked Mr. Song, if that holds, then you could apply this to any corner lot. He said, yes, that's entirely correct. I said, there are 11 corner lots in the neighborhood. That would set a precedent. Probably so. I asked Mr. Song where this interpretation came from, and he said, well, it's just one interpretation. There are many. I sought the counsel of an attorney. Their opinion was different. I didn't choose to bring representation here today on behalf of the neighborhood. I don't think that's the way to settle a matter. Okay. So what we've got then here is I'd like to reference you to, on page 4. Oh, I need to state first and foremost that I am representing the abutting neighbor, Captain Will Jackson, 1807 Colt Drive, and you will find his statement and an additional authorization for me to speak on his behalf, and that is on page
19.
Mr. Jackson could not be here because he is on assignment. He's in the military. His document there states what he, somehow I've left it out of my packet, states what he would like to happen with this lot. I think at this point I need to say, no one that I am aware of in the neighborhood is advocating the destruction or the removal of the home. What we're looking for is clarification of the facts. Clarification of I think the site plan that was submitted was wrong initially, and I think Mr. Wood admitted that from what I understand, in the community meeting. Mr. Wood, what? 1 minute. Okay. What we're advocating is to sit down at the table with Brookhaven and Mr. Wood and basically work out a plan that's acceptable to the neighborhood, primarily Mr. Wood. In some of the documentation, Mr. Wood has referred to his property as having the same setbacks as other houses. Mr. Bill Pierce and I went out there and measured, and this property is 31.5 feet if you take away the county setback. Mr. is 78 feet minus the 10 setback is 68 feet. The property on the only other abutting property right here, which is 1779 Remington, is also set back. So either average setbacks need to be applied or they need to be defined, and that may be part of the solution. But
thank you very much, Mr. Murphy.
Advocating for denial or deferral.
All right. I believe Mr. Wood still has some time reserved for. Right, you deferred your time to Mr. Murphy, and
Mr. Murphy, yeah.
Well, there were 10 minutes allotted to opposition, and he used all 10 minutes. Okay, all right, sorry.
Just in response to it, Mr. Jackson, he does live behind me. I sent him the landscape plan showing what I was going to do to buffer, and I did not get a response. And I want to be a good neighbor. I mean, I'm going to live with them for a long time, but this is, a lot of emails and phone calls to Paul that I brought as record with no response. So that's months and months. And so I've been meeting with the neighborhood constantly, and so I'm not sure. These are exhibits, just talking about precedents. This is a house just down at the corner of Winchester and Remington that I measured on. Is there any way to get the monitor on? That measured, that's pretty small. But anyway, I can pass these around, but it shows it's a 30-foot right-of-way, 57 as measurement, which would put it about 25. This one is measured at 63, this one at 61, and that one, which is my house, at 70. And so I was just trying to get a comparison of how close they were, and it seemed like that a lot of the corner houses are there. As far as the average setback on corner lots, it just, most of the lots, mine is one of the biggest corner lots, and if you put average setbacks on any of the corner lots, there would be no buildable area left on corner lots. That's why it is the 35 and 35. As far as the site plan, I have it here. We haven't submitted anything additional. I submitted for a permit when we first started. It was reviewed, and it was okay by Vince Valvo, the building inspector. So there is no errors on our site plan. It's not a site plan. It's just a survey, and we've had it surveyed, a brand new survey. I know y'all were talking about that earlier. So we've had a brand new survey done, even set back out to check the pins to the old deeds. And so we've done a lot of stuff. We just really hope you guys approve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, that concludes the public comment portion of the meeting, so we'll go ahead and close that out and open up to the board for any questions or discussion. I have a question. You said you had a petition in support?
Yes, sir.
How many signatures are on that petition?
There are 13 signatures, but I'm not sure whether these 13 are duplicates from,
From the speakers
but
tonight?
I can look
Okay.
at it quickly if you'd like.
That's fine.
Okay.
If you're bored while we're talking. Mr. Murphy, I have a question for you. What is your, I guess, what would you like to see happen with this house?
Okay. As I said in my closing statement, I'm not advocating, and other people in the neighborhood are not advocating tearing the house down. I think there are some misassumptions here with not only the site plan, the application of the average setback, and, with all due respect, Mr. Woods has never discussed or met Mr. Jackson. Mr. Jackson is quite concerned about his privacy, et cetera. So I would like the opportunity, on behalf of the neighborhood and and on behalf of Mr. Jackson, as we have been requesting for quite some time, is to sit down with the city of Brookhaven and Mr. Woods and first address, the average setback, and that could be done with a solution of clarifying that law. If it's so ambiguous that Mr. Curry and other attorneys can't agree on what it is, I've read it. It said corner lots, and it's on page 5.
I'm well-versed in it.
Right. It doesn't say average setbacks don't apply on corner lots. And I'm not advocating that, but I'm saying you can't take away other corner lots and apply this, etc. So I've said I'd like to have a meeting with the City of Brookhaven for them to mediate a discussion, come to terms and agreements. No one's trying to block this couple from building that house, but we want to see it done responsibly in a way that the abutting neighbors feel that they have been addressed. So I think there are a lot of misassumptions that I'd like to sit down and address with the City of Brookhaven and Mr. Wood, and I think a deferral would be in order for us to do that and meet. I haven't met with Ms. Cannon since August of 13. I've requested meetings with Mr. Song, and I
Okay, well, and I'd like to go ahead and jump in and respond. It seems like you're trying to create, or you're trying to avoid this board setting a dangerous precedent towards the rest of your neighborhood.
Correct.
Rest assured, the Zoning Board of Appeals does not set precedent. No decision that we render sets a precedent for a future decision. So if that's your main concern, then I'll go ahead and alleviate that for you, that our decisions, as we have been instructed from day one that this board was put in place, is that our decisions do not create precedent. What I am seeing right now is a preponderance of the neighbors in attendance here want to see this house move forward. They're tired of the eyesore. The issue that you have is the precedent that this could set with the rest of your neighborhood, or the possibility that there could be interior problems with the home, which to me would be addressed throughout the completion of the home and the inspection process moving forward. I have no issue with you having dialogue with the city about how to handle the interpretation of the corner lot variances going forward. I fully support, active citizen involvement in that. But we have a problem right now that is, if you don't advocate for the house being torn down and we don't set precedent, do you see an issue why this variance shouldn't be granted that I haven't addressed?
I don't, excuse me, I don't think it's been fully vetted through the process. Mr. Zong himself told me if this goes through, that it could be applied to any corner lot. Well, that is setting precedent, and despite the fact you said Zoning Board of Appeals doesn't, Mr. Song and Ms. Cannon do.
I can assure you that the same corner lot setbacks have been enforced throughout the city of Brookhaven for quite some time now. Okay? That is being actively enforced throughout the city.
And we've been fairly consistent in applying
we've been
that.
extremely consistent in our application of that. This is not something that's specific to this one lot that's in your neighborhood.
Each case stands on its own merit. Each case presents a specific set of facts, survey, topo, houses across street. Every case is different. And that's why there's no precedent.
I'm willing to bet that there was possibly a misinterpretation of what Mr. Song, what his intention was.
I have it it's in the packet there. That's one of the things that greatly concerned me. And in addition to that, I have continued to reach out for the city of Brookhaven since January of 2013. And I don't understand, why we couldn't resolve this during the process. I have reached out to Rebecca Williams, and she agrees.
I understand, and I appreciate your comments, and I think you addressed the question that I wanted to see answered. If anybody else has any question of Mr. Murphy or the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, in vetting the petition and those that spoke in favor, there are 11 additional parties on the petition that were not represented in speaking that are in support of the approval.
Mr. Wood, You've repeatedly said that you're willing to make your landscape and your screening conditions for the adjoining house on
This is the
Holt,
one.
I believe. Yeah. I don't know if you brought that tonight or if it's part of the official record.
It's in the package.
It's in there.
Is it in the packet? Okay, what page is that?
Page 202.
202. Okay. Thank you.
I brought the email that I sent to Mr. Jackson with that attached too, if it's needed.
Mr. Wood, when did you actually send that email?
Thursday, May the 22nd, 2014, when we came up with the plan, the screening
It's
plan.
been almost a month and you've heard no response there.
Correct.
Are we still in the comment stage? Or?
We're in the question, comment, discussion stage.
Well, we've been doing this board's been in business now for over a year. Mr. Wood, you have been very well prepared. You've been extremely detailed in your approach to the neighbors. You've obviously secured a lot of support. You were not the cause of this hardship. And, you know, as a real estate attorney, I know that none of this would have appeared on the title record unless somebody filed a list pendens, which they probably didn't. And so you are kind of an innocent buyer. You've got a lender who's taking a chance on you. I mean, this case screams for resolution. You've got the overwhelming support of your neighbors. You've addressed every concern anybody could have, and you know, you're willing to say that the lot will not be further subdivided, which was a part of the previous litigation. So, you know, the length of the bathtub, I like that analogy. You know, I'm fully in support of this with the two conditions that the screening, you know, on packet page 202 be part of the conditions and that the lot cannot be further subdivided.
Is that a motion?
What's a comment?
Seeing as how there's no more questions, I'll go ahead and close the question and answer session and open it up to the board for any motions.
I move for approval with the conditions that the staff recommended, and also with the screening condition and the no subdivision condition.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second for approval of ZBA 14-36 to reduce the front yard setback along Remington Road from 35 feet to 31 feet, conditioned upon the one recommendation in the staff report and upon the landscape exhibit on page 202 of the packet, and the other stipulation that the lot not be further subdivided. Any discussion? And as there's none, all those in favor of the motion as stated, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion passes unanimously. All right, our last case of the evening is ZBA 14-37.
Let's take a moment.
We'll take a moment to clear the room.
Let neighbors meet each other, you know.
All right, let's go ahead and move this forward. All right, we have one board member that needs to recuse himself from the next case. If everybody could please try to quietly slide out in the hall. We got one more case to hear, and then we all get to go home too. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll go ahead and recuse myself due to my involvement in the Parents Association with the applicant, the church.
Thank you very much, Mr. So. All right, we have ZBA 14-37, Brookhaven UMC Child Development Center to reduce setback requirement for a structure, a deck, related to a place of worship, section 27-768, from 75 feet to 12.5 feet at 1366 North Druid Hills Road. Call for the stipulated staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Staff has recommended approval of the request and will stipulate the report with the condition as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Applicant, please come forward.
Good evening. I'm Catherine Myhofer. I'm on the Parents Association. I manage the Parents Workday. And what we'd like to do is build a deck outside of the infant room. Currently, the outdoor exit in the infant classroom leads to a concrete landing, which is approximately 19 inches above grade. This landing leads to an attached concrete ramp, which slopes down to the grade. In order to provide a safe outdoor space for infants, without the need to roll cribs down the concrete ramp, we are seeking to remove a portion of the existing railing at the top of the landing and build a deck shown in the site plan at the same height as the landing. This will allow cribs to be rolled out of the classroom onto the deck without the hazard of a concrete ramp. An accrediting agency, right from the start, has expressed concern over the safety of moving infants down the concrete ramp. This is the best solution to allow infants to continue to experience the outdoors.
Thank you very much.
I'll reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
All right. Any comment cards? All right. Okay.
I'm Wesley Sanders. I'm the pastor at Brookhaven United Methodist Church, also a neighbor. I live right on the property, so it's very, very, very dear to my heart. I urge you to approve this. This will help us to, as of now, we're still able to maintain the accreditation to roll the cribs out there, but we expect that right from the start will not permit us to continue that. And if we don't have this, the infants will have to stay inside the whole, up to 11 hours a day. And we think it's most healthy for the children, for them to be able to experience the outdoors from the earliest time during their development. And we think this is an important part of the ministry of the church and the ministry of this development center. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other speaker cards?
No, sir.
All right. Seeing as how there's none, I doubt you want to rebut that. So we'll go ahead and close the public comment, open it up to the board for any discussion. I see no reason not to grant this variance, seeing as how it's being done to allow the infants to be taken outside safely in a manner required by the accreditation agency.
I agree.
I'm curious, are you going to have a work day to build this deck, or is it being professionally built? Okay, that makes me feel better.
Were you volunteering?
No, she said she was the workday committee or something.
Yes, I manage the workday that we do twice a year, but this is
Right. This
falls under the umbrella, but there is a
too important to not have it professional.
And it would have to be permitted.
Sure.
By a licensed contract.
Good. That's what I thought.
All right, seeing as how there's no more discussion, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion.
I move for approval.
Second.
Motion and a second for approval of ZBA 14-37.
Excuse me, with the staff recommendation.
As conditioned by the recommendations of the staff report. Any discussion? All those in favor of the approval of ZBA 14-37, please signify by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you for staying so late.
Thank you. I'll now entertain a motion for adjournment.
I'm so moved. Oh.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing as there's